Chapter 395. Reeks. All right, since you trust me, I'll trust you too. The female magician removed the mana barrier and focused on Fitch. The opposing team's reinforcements switched their weapons and turned around to attack as well. F***CK, what's going on? Quan Zhen cried out when they saw the two teams targeting the boss. Wuji was both shocked and angry. F***CK, they want to split the boss evenly. Xuanjin had done this before, so Wuji could naturally guess what the two teams were planning. Everyone understood what was going on after Wuji said that. This time, everyone from the Quanjin sect was unhappy. No matter what, half of the boss belonged to the Quanjin sect. With the temper of the Quanjin sect, it was already good enough that they did not snatch the boss from them. Yet, they actually joined forces with the people from the Dark faction to defame the Quanjin sect. F***CK, how dare they scheme against our quest item? Destroy them. As they spoke, the members of the Quanjin sect surrounded them. If it did not affect their own interests, Xuanjin could peacefully watch the two tigers fight. Now that their interests were at stake, how could these guys who would rather die than suffer a loss tolerate it? Seeing that Xuanjin had surrounded them, the two sides that were fighting the boss immediately became alert. The boss did not have much HP left. After the previous battle, it had already lost a lot of HP. Now that it was surrounded by two sides, it was on the verge of collapse. It was estimated that it would not last much longer. After fighting for so long, of course they would not give up. Moreover, they had the advantage in numbers. Therefore, the archers and magicians from both sides tacitly started attacking Xuanjin. Yinlao Air raised his giant shield and charged into the crowd, activating AoE Taunt. Under the effect of Taunt, a few melee players around Yinlao Air could not help but attack Yinlao Air. There were even two thieves who were in stealth that were pulled out. Yu won. This was the reason why the thief class was countered by the tank class. A thief's combo couldn't one-shot a tank. Meanwhile, a tank had a taunt skill that forced them to attack. It had to be known that once a thief attacked, their stealth would be cancelled. Without stealth, a thief would be useless. At the same time, Bao San's whirlwind spun, stepping on Mingdu's magic and charging into the enemy formation. In one round, 4 of the 20 people in the alliance died on the spot. When the two warriors broke up their formation, the others followed them to the front of the boss and took over the boss. A bald warrior in the female sorceress's team said angrily, "You dare to steal our Burning Legion's boss? You must be tired of living." Burning Legion Ming Jiandaoxue had already found this female mage familiar. Now that he had heard the name of the Burning Legion, he carefully looked at the female mage and said in surprise, "You're as beautiful as Jade." Burning Legion. Their guild wasn't the top in the country, but their team was still one of the top 10 first-rate teams in the country. Moreover, they were quite popular, not losing out to the top few teams. It was because Burning Legion had the #1 female player in the server, Beauty. There weren't many women in the competitive scene to begin with, let alone beauty like Jade. In the hearts of these netizens, beauty like Jade was in existence on the level of a goddess. Ming Jiandaoxue was no exception. In the past, in order to watch beauty like Jade's matches, he had specially flown over to watch from afar. However, beauty like Jade had always kept a low profile. In addition, it was just a game of mouse and mouse, so Ming Jiandaoxue had never seen her up close. Now that he saw her, his heart couldn't help but waver. The witch doctor was also shocked, so it's Beauty. No wonder she's so strong. You have to give me an autograph later. Mingdu and the others were old players, and after hearing the name Beauty, they laughed. Hee, hearing about her isn't as good as seeing her in person. She really is as beautiful as the rumors say. Humph. Beauty coldly snorted. Since you know, then why aren't you scramming? Yang Na coldly said, "Who do you think you are?" "She's the #1 female expert in the country." Wuji said, a bit infatuated. "#1 female expert? Who said that?" Yang Na's face was unfriendly. Wuji was smart, and after hearing Yang Na's tone, he immediately changed his words and said loudly, "Not anymore. Who are you people?" When Ru Jadeite saw that these people from the Quanjun sect weren't afraid after hearing her name, she suddenly had an ominous premonition. Who are you people? Us. Wuji smiled meaningfully. You don't deserve to know our name. Divine Fist, show them what you're made of. As soon as Wuji finished speaking, Wang Yu rushed forward. Before this, Wuji had sent him a message. You're now using Divine Dragon Fist. Beauty Jade was shocked and took a few steps back. A green light flashed at the tip of her staff, and she shouted, Dancing ghost vines imprison. After chanting the spell, thick tree roots suddenly drilled out from the spot where the people of the Quanjin sect were. The tree roots quickly formed a cage, trapping the people of the Quanjin sect inside. Damn, this woman is a wood magician. Mingdu shouted in surprise. Wood magicians were one of the hidden subclasses of magicians. Their control skills were much stronger than warlocks, and even more powerful was that their control skills could also deal damage. UU3. Beauty Jade's dancing ghost vines lasted for a full minute, and while it trapped Chuanjin and the others, it also caused them a lot of damage. However, this skill had a flaw. Once the target was trapped, they could no longer be attacked. However, Beauty Jade's target was the boss, and the others could wait until the boss was dead. As expected of the number 1 expert, amazing. Seeing Beauty Jade trap these arrogant fellows, the opposing witch doctor praised her in admiration. She even skipped the word woman and directly called him the number 1 expert. Of course, Sister Jade can control and fight. Even if there were 10 of these people, we wouldn't be afraid. Beauty Jade's lackeys flattered. Being praised like this, Beauty Jade's expression didn't look good. There's still one left. Beauty Jade said. Magicians knew how many targets their magic had hit. There were 10 people in front of them, but dancing ghost vines only hit 9. No way, where is he? Why don't I see him? Beauty Jade's lackeys said doubtfully. At this time, Wang Yu's voice came from behind everyone. I'm here. Beauty Jade turned her head and just happened to see Wang Yu reach out to grab her. Beauty Jade's figure flashed, and she flashed 5 meters away. She asked in fear, You, how did you dodge it? Dancing Ghost Vine's activation speed was much faster than Darkness Barrier, and its range was also much larger. Dodging this kind of skill was too strange. Wang Yu saw Beauty Jade teleport away and looked at her in surprise, but he quickly understood. As the Burning Legion's expert, it wasn't strange for a mage like Beauty Jade to learn a teleportation skill. Chapter 396. When a mage chanted a spell, they only needed to chant the correct incantation given by the system. It wasn't like whoever shouted louder would have a higher spell power. If that was the case, then a musician as a mage would be invincible. Take Mingdu, for example. That bastard's chanting was like a mosquito's fart. Unlike Beautiful Jade, who didn't care about her image at all, she almost shouted at the top of her lungs. Although dancing ghost vines didn't have any prerequisites and didn't need to be channeled, the process from start to finish was like the trajectory of an archer. It was a long process, from the time the tree vines drilled out of the ground to the time it entangled into a cage. This process would take at least 2 seconds. 2 seconds was definitely enough for Chuanjin's group of experts to escape. If it wasn't for the fact that this was the first time they saw this skill, it would have been strange for them to be trapped. Moreover, Beauty like Jade had shouted so loudly that she had alerted Wang Yu before the skill was activated. It was also at that moment that Wang Yu had teleported behind Beauty like Jade. If not for the fact that Beauty like Jade was a woman, Wang Yu would have crushed her to death a few times. Beautiful Jade blushed after hearing Wang Yu's words. She coldly snorted and pointed her staff at Wang Yu. Entangling roots bind. Following Beautiful Jade's chant, 3 tree roots drilled out of the ground. They were like pythons, staring at Wang Yu's legs and entangling them. Wang Yu was not in a hurry. He jumped back lightly and switched his weapon to a single-handed sword in midair. He stabbed downwards and cut off the tree root in front of him. Then, he lunged forward with one leg and slashed horizontally. With a flash of sword light, he cut off another 2 tree roots behind him. The saber was heavy and the sword was light and agile. The sword was a type of technical weapon. Putting aside the power, it was very pleasing to the eyes. The sword that Wang Yu used was called Meteor Chasing the Moon. His movements were elegant and cool, and it was extremely pretentious. The spectators were dumbfounded and forgot to attack for a moment. This is impossible. Seeing this scene, beautiful Jade was immediately stunned. Beauty like Jade wasn't surprised by Wang Yu's swordplay, but by Wang Yu's judgment. Rebirth's priority settings were similar to normal games. Classes with high strength naturally had higher priority. Apart from this, if two people of the same class attacked each other, the person with higher attack would have higher priority. For the same reason, a melee and a ranged attack would be judged based on the damage dealt. Mages were famous for their high burst damage and high damage. Even with mages, who didn't specialize in DPS, still dealt far more damage than other classes. However, beautiful Jade's skill had just been shattered by Wang Yu's sword. This meant that her damage as a mage had been outclassed by a Grandmaster of Combat, whose attack power wasn't that outstanding. Moreover, that Grandmaster of Combat had used a normal attack. How could beautiful Jade accept this? Ignore him. Attack the boss. Beautiful Jade immediately ordered her companions behind her after she came to her senses. In just 2 rounds, beautiful Jade could feel the strength of the Grandmaster of Combat opposite her, so she was prepared for the worst. In Rebirth settings, the chances of the items in the bag being revealed were extremely low. The boss's first attack was taken by Jade Beauty's party. As long as they killed the boss and picked up the quest items, even if the party was wiped, they wouldn't be afraid. At this time, the boss didn't have much HP left. They couldn't let Wang Yu get the last attack. Hearing Jade Beauty's orders, the two groups hesitated, but they didn't dare to make any mistakes. They immediately surrounded the boss again. Mana barrier, poison vine coil. Jade Beauty waved her left hand, and a mana barrier appeared in front of her. At the same time, she controlled a thick vine with her right hand and used it like a whip, stabbing towards Wang Yu's body. The vine was covered with barbs. The barbs were green, and it was obvious that they were poisonous. Wang Yu didn't dare to be careless. He raised his sword in front of his chest and blocked the vine. Unexpectedly, the vine was so strong that it pushed Wang Yu back by 2 meters. Just as Wang Yu steadied his body, the vine came smashing down from above. Wang Yu turned his feet and used a strange movement to dodge the vine that was smashing down. At the same time, he thrust the long sword in his hand forward and stabbed the vine. Seeing this, Jade Beauty swung the staff that was controlling the vine. The vine swung from left to right with force, as if it wanted to swing Wang Yu to death. However, things didn't go as Jade Beauty wished. Not only did Wang Yu not die from the swing, but he was like a leaf in the wind. He was thrown out and landed not far from the boss. Jade Beauty turned pale with fright and shouted, "Stop him!" The boss's aggro was on Jade Beauty's team. After receiving the order, the witch doctor from the Dark faction quickly ordered his team to surround Wang Yu. The witch doctor team also had 10 people. After being killed by the Quanjin team, there were still 6 people left. 3 archers, 1 shield bearer, 1 witch doctor, and 1 spellcaster. The shield bearer took the lead and charged at Wang Yu with his shield raised. Wang Yu leaped up and landed behind the shield bearer. He turned around and used the return of the prodigal son, stabbing his sword into the back of the shield bearer's neck. The shield bearer didn't have much health to begin with, and with Wang Yu stabbing him in the back, he was instantly killed. At that moment, the attacks of the spellcaster and archer had also arrived. Wang Yu tapped repeatedly with his long sword, knocking down the arrows. Then, he waved his hand and slashed away 2 icicles. He switched his weapon to the universe blade and pushed the blade against the ground. Wang Yu used the momentum to fly toward the group of people from the Dark faction. Without the shield bearer's protection, these people were extremely weak. They were about to flee when they saw Wang Yu flying towards them. Wang Yu landed on the ground and waved his blade. The universe blade drew a circle of light around Wang Yu. 5 rays of white light rose at the same time, and the Dark faction's team was wiped out. At that moment, the boss's health had already dropped to 1. "You're very strong." Jade Beauty looked at Wang Yu with a smile and said, "But you won't have a chance anymore. Is that so?" Wang Yu smiled and looked behind Jade Beauty. At that moment, a patch of thorns suddenly rose around the boss, freezing everyone around the boss. "Sister Jade, what's going on?" Seeing the patch of thorns, everyone looked at Jade Beauty in shock. Then, their faces turned dark. It wasn't me. Jade Beauty was also quite surprised when she saw the patch of thorns. Before she could explain anything, she saw a flash of lightning. At the same time, an arrow hit the boss Fitch's throat. Fitch turned into a white light with a face full of resentment. The items that the boss dropped after his death were also taken by two people who suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Chapter 397. Genius in 1 second. Remember Net, providing you with exciting novels to read. Hearing Wuji's voice, Jade's expression froze. This Grandmaster of Combat was so strong that she forgot he had a helper. Dancing, ghastly withered vines only lasted for a minute. A minute was neither too short nor too long for a player. In the time it took for beautiful like Jade to exchange blows with Wang Yu, a minute quickly passed. Wuji looked at Jade and asked, "Now that the boss is dead, is there a need for us to continue fighting?" Jade glared at Wuji fiercely, then turned to her companions and said, "Humph, let's go." Jade was also a famous expert. She had never been in such an awkward situation since the start of the game. With her strength and reputation, she could easily defeat any opponent, but today she had to admit defeat. It couldn't be helped. The opponent was a Grandmaster of Combat, and her entire team was exhausted. Moreover, the other people were obviously not to be trifled with, especially the female player in the opponent's team. The way she looked at her was full of provocation. She didn't have the slightest intention of taking an expert like her seriously. It was obvious that this group of people were not ordinary players. Does anyone know those people? After leaving the battlefield, Jade asked her subordinates. "No, but I think I heard the priest call the Grandmaster of Combat God Fist." God Fist. Jade thought for a moment and said, "Which Grandmaster of Combat has the God Fist? It can't be the Divine Dragon Fist, right?" At this time, another subordinate beside Jade said. This subordinate had many friends in Qiyin City. He had heard that there was a very powerful Grandmaster of Combat called the Divine Dragon Fist. Divine Dragon Fist dominating the world? I think there is such a person. Jade was slightly stunned. She suddenly remembered that there was a very powerful Grandmaster of Combat in dominating the world. Hearing Jade say this, the others were even more furious. F***CK, dominating the world, these shameless people. No wonder they didn't dare to sign up. How dare they mess up our guild mission? Sister Jade, we must report this to the boss. Beauty reunited, her eyes filled with anger. This quest was a guild-leveling quest for the Burning Legion. Guild-leveling quests were quite difficult. In the beginning, the Burning Legion only had a few hundred people. Even under the leadership of an expert like Beautiful Jade, there were only 10 people left at the end of the quest. In the end, the boss was stolen by someone else, and they had worked for nothing. Even though Beautiful Jade was a girl, her temper was worse than a man's. After suffering such a huge loss, how could she not be angry? She immediately opened her friend list and reported what had happened to Burning Legion's young Master Wushuang. Young Master Unparalleled was also quite surprised to hear this. Really? The game hasn't even been open for a month, and World Domination already dares to openly stir up trouble? They didn't do it openly. They didn't even dare to say their names. I only heard that one of them was called Divine Fist. He's a very powerful Grandmaster of Combat. I'm guessing it's the Divine Fist of the Dragon, Beautiful Jade said honestly. A very powerful Grandmaster of Combat. His name is XX Godly Fist. He must be one of those bastards who rule the world, young Master Wushuang said angrily. The number of Grandmasters of Combat could be counted on one hand, and there was only one called Godly Fist. It was too easy to find. Then what do we do now? Do we take revenge? Beautiful Jade asked. Of course we do. We're still in the early stages of the game. Young Master Unparalleled laughed coldly. Of course I know that. They can hide their names, but so can we. Let Xiao Dao bring some people to harass their people. After waiting for half a month, I don't believe that World Domination won't get a headache. Qiyin City, Quan Tianxia's office. Quan Tianxia was in the midst of a discussion with Yulong Xiaoyao when Imperial Dragon Slash barged into the room in a fluster. "You're always so impatient. How's the matter I asked you to do?" World Ruler Quan reprimanded Imperial Dragon Slash. However, World Ruler Quan was still in good mood. Since Imperial Dragon Slash had returned, it meant that Wang Yu had been farmed at least a dozen times. "How's it going?" World Domination asked with a smile. "This." Dragon Slash looked at Imperial Dragon Xiaoyao awkwardly. News in the game spread faster than in reality. How could Dragon Slash not know that World Domination and Imperial Dragon Xiaoyao were in a bad mood because of the matter with Wang Yu? World Domination glanced at Imperial Dragon Xiaoyao and said heroically, "Don't worry, just say it. I'll stand up for you. No one could do anything to you." The reason why Ruling Heaven had used the Imperial Dragon Slash to hide this matter from Xiaoyao was because he wanted to tell Xiaoyao that he shouldn't think too highly of his team. "Even without him, I can still deal with whoever I want." Yulong Xiaoyao was completely confused by Quan Tianxia's gaze. "What does it have to do with me if the two of you are playing tricks on me?" Thinking till here, Yulong Xiaoyao indifferently said, "If you have something to say, just say it." Dragon Slash was forced into a corner and could only shrink his neck and say, we got wiped out. World Domination's smile immediately froze. Yulong Xiaoyao looked at Quan Yutian's expression, and a look of confusion appeared on his face. "What kind of dirty deal are the two of you doing?" Imperial Dragon Xiaoyao asked curiously. In the next moment, World Domination jumped up and pointed at Dragon Slash's head. "A few hundred people went to kill one person, and you're telling me that we got wiped out?" He had helpers," Dragon Slash said carefully. World Domination was managed like a business. It was different from other guilds that focused on playing games. Every member of the guild was an employee of World Domination. Even when Dragon Riding Slash was poked in the head and scolded, he did not dare to retaliate. How could his dignity compare to his job? Helpers? World Domination heard that Wang Yu had helpers, and his tone softened. Could it be that the Blood Alliance helped him? Dragon Slash didn't know what to say. Originally, with Dragon Slash's character, he was going to say that Wang Yu had many helpers, which was why they got wiped out. However, when he heard that there was a large-scale conflict, Dragon Slash didn't say anything else. Once there was a large-scale conflict between two guilds, there would be a war. No matter if the other side was Blood Alliance or not, it would cause a huge commotion. At that time, wouldn't Dragon Slash be exposed? A battle between a few hundred people would definitely be a large-scale conflict. Dragon Slash didn't dare to lie. No, they only had 10 people. After thinking about it, Dragon Slash decided to tell the truth. 10 people. Quan Yutian was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He didn't know what words he should use to curse at the Imperial Dragon Slash. At the side, Yulong Xiaoyao heard the conversation between the two and immediately understood what was going on. He furrowed his brows and asked, "Did you bring people to cause trouble for the Chuanjin sect?" Chapter 398. Genius 1 Second Remember Net, providing you with exciting novels to read. Imperial Dragon Slash nodded and replied softly. "How did the 10 of them annihilate the 300 of you?" Xiaoyao asked fearfully. As one of the top gods in the professional circle, Xiaoyao believed that he could fight against 10 enemies alone. Once the number of enemies exceeded 100, it was no longer a matter of multiplication. Even if the 10 members of the Carefree Battle Team attacked together, if they were attacked by over 100 players simultaneously, they would most likely be annihilated in a single round. Yet, Imperial Dragon Slash claimed that the 10 members of the Carefree Battle Team had annihilated 300 players. Although Xiaoyao had long since mentally prepared himself for this, he still felt a chill run down his spine. Could it be that those guys were already this strong in this new game mode? They have a warlock who can summon and a mage who can cast group spells. We were careless and didn't surround them. Dragon Riding Slash honestly recounted the situation at that time. From how Chuanjin and his men broke out of the encirclement to how they killed a group of assassins on his side, the narration was very detailed. Both Yulong Xiaoyao and Quan Yutian became more and more shocked as they listened. Could it be that the summoner was a summoner imp? AoE sorcerer with extremely powerful spells, assassins, and warriors that can work with tanks and crowd control classes to insta-kill. An archer who can kill a brittle skin at 20 meters. With every sentence, Kuan Yu Tion's eyelids twitched. What about that Grandmaster of Combat? Kuan Yu Tion asked, wiping his sweat. Dragon Rider's face was full of pain when he heard the word Grandmaster of Combat. That be *TCH lured us into a high-level monster area and attracted more than 500 monsters to surround us. By the time we killed that group of monsters, there were only about 100 of us left. And then we were annihilated by them. Imperial Dragon Slayer lowered his head. Hiss! Kuan Yu Tion sucked in a breath of cold air. Although Chuanjin's members had killed nearly 2/3 of World Domination's members in an instant, they had relied on crafty plots and schemes. However, the last 100 members of World Domination's team had relied on their own abilities. 10 against 100 was still a shocking number. I didn't think that the Grandmaster of Combat would have such a powerful group of friends, Quan Tianxiao muttered. Yulong Xiaoyao said, I've already warned you. Those people are not to be trifled with. You just had to go and provoke them. Fortunately, they didn't suffer a loss this time. Otherwise, when they come knocking on your door, just wait for them to come knocking. Imperial Dragon thought for a moment, then said to Ruler of the World, Wuji told me to tell you that they're coming to cause trouble for our guild, so that you know who's the trash guild. Wuji, who is that? Kuan Yu Qian asked curiously. He had never seen such an arrogant person before. Yulong Xiaoyao replied, He's the leader of that group of people. Is he also an expert? Quan Tianxia asked. Xiaoyao sighed. This fellow's techniques are definitely top-notch, but he isn't the scariest. Dragon Grandmaster Day. King Dragon, King Tian, Dragon Ziaf Wuji, King Master. Grandmaster of 3 King Wood Wuji, Clan Wood Will. King said, Has of King Yang King. King has long of King. Xiaoyao Yulong shook his head. A bunch of wild horses, I don't think they can hold them back. Kuan Yu Tion said disdainfully, We have money and manpower. As long as you help me, do you think we can't subdue them? I don't mind helping you. However, it still depends on the big boss. Xiaoyao spread out his hands. What did the boss drop? At this moment, a group of people from Chuanjin surrounded Ming Jian Dao Xue and asked curiously. Ming Jian Du Shui leisurely took out 3 items from his pocket. The first item was a black, square-shaped object called Stronghold Fortress. Stronghold increases the level of a guild's encampment by 2 levels. After handing this item to the city lord of the encampment city, the guild building will be upgraded. Hint, the highest level of upgrade is the city. Guild residences were divided into 7 ranks. Basic residence, intermediate residence, advanced residence, village, town, city, and metropolis. Currently, most of the guild residences were low-grade like Chuanjin. Only Blood Alliance was a middle-grade one. Different residences had different effects. Apart from population capacity, the higher the level of the residence, the stronger the defense and the stronger the defensive equipment. For example, Chuanjin's low-grade residences had around 100 defense. Each gate only had 2 arrow towers, which were rather simple. Middle-grade residences had 300 defense and 2 more mage turrets. However, this item didn't attract the people from Chuanjin at all. What is the use of this thing? Seeing the introduction of Stronghold Fortress, the people from Chuanjin expressed their disdain. Chuanjin only had a dozen or so people, and 10 of them didn't return to their residences once every half a year. Having a residence was the same as not having one. The guild had been established for so long, and they hadn't even done any guild quests. Who cared about this thing? It can be sold for money. Wuji was more practical and directly showed them the use of this item. To Chuanjin, this item was useless, but to other guilds, it was a priceless treasure. The second item was also a guild treasure, but it was a tree. Tree of Life receives Faith Halo, Life Praise. Place this item in the guild residence, and it will take effect. Life Praise. Max HP increased by 200, HP and MP recovery increased by 50. Seeing the stats of the Tree of Life, everyone said, This is not bad. If we have to choose one, I think this is better. In Rebirth, apart from consuming potions to recover HP and MP, there was also automatic recovery. Although the 50 recovery speed increase wasn't much, it wasn't a small amount for everyone in the guild. Furthermore, the 200 increase to max HP was a huge increase to the HP of the weaker classes. Wuji smiled. Don't worry, as long as we do as I say, these two are ours. The last item that the boss dropped was an exclusive item, Alchemist's mysterious treasure chest, only usable by alchemists. This thing can't be sold for money. Let's give it to Edelweiss when we get back. Snow suggested. Although Snow was not a combat member of Chuanjin, she was a cash cow for Chuanjin. No one had any objections to Snow's suggestion. After putting away the items, everyone returned to the frontline sentry post. The quartermaster was already anxiously waiting. When he saw the Quanjun sex group return, he asked anxiously, "Esteemed Lord Warrior, did you manage to kill the detestable alchemist Fitch?" "Yes, I killed him. This is what you wanted." Wang Yu took out the Tree of Life and threw it to the quartermaster according to Wuji's instructions. The quartermaster took the Tree of Life and looked at it. "Not bad, this is it. Thank you so much. May I know where the fortress is now?" "I'm not sure." Wang Yu shook his head against his will. The quartermaster muttered to himself, "Alchemist Fitch is dead, and the fortress should not be able to return to the Dark Faction. To express our gratitude, and to prevent the treasure from being stolen again, please accept it." After speaking, the quartermaster returned the Tree of Life to Wang Yu. System notification. You have completed the hidden quest, Survival. Obtained 2000000 EXP. Guild Treasure, Tree of Life in the channel. Everyone exclaimed, "Holy SH*T. They've really hacked the Stronghold Fortress." They had thought that the system would take the Tree of Life away, but who knew that it would be returned just like that? Wuji laughed and said, "These 2 guild treasures are rewards for players. After we chase away the Burning Legion, as long as we insist that we haven't seen the other one, the NPC won't deduct the reward we deserve." "You're awesome." After the quest was completed, everyone regained their teleportation function and returned to Yu Huicheng via the teleportation formation at the front line. Suddenly, a system announcement flashed. Thunderstorm City player Nian Luyan was the first to complete the beginner's trial and reach level 30. His name will go down in history forever. I hope that all players will use this as an example and work hard to walk further on the path of becoming strong. The announcement was repeated 3 times in a row, resounding throughout the reborn continent and shocking everyone. Currently, the average level of players was around level 25, and the level 28 experts in Chuanjin were at the top of the leaderboards. It was unexpected for someone to reach level 30 so quickly. At this moment, the most sullen person was Yang Na. Yang Na was just a little bit away from reaching level 30, but someone beat her to it. This girl had always been competitive, and being suppressed by someone with such a small advantage, she was quite unhappy. Although there was only 1 level difference between level 30 and level 29, it was a qualitative increase in strength. This was because before level 30, players were considered to be in the beginner stage, and their skills and talents were the lowest. When players left level 30, they would enter the adventurer stage, and their skills would also be the most representative of their class. The class bonuses brought by intermediate talents were also incomparable to those before level 30. In addition, it was said that the first player to reach level 30 would be rewarded with an exclusive equipment, which was what everyone coveted the most. "I'm so angry, why was I so close?" Yang Na screamed at the sky. Wuji comforted her. "Don't be depressed. Hurry up and level up. If you get snatched away at level 30, you can fight for level 60. Just as all the experts were feeling depressed, the forum was once again in chaos. Wang Yu and Yin Luyan were the 2 people who were often compared on the forum, and their fans were often at each other's throats. At this moment, Yin Luyan reached level 30 before Wang Yu, and her fans were showing off. Yu Huicheng's forum was full of Thunderstorm City's provocative posts. "No matter how strong Iron Ox is, isn't he still inferior to our Yin Luyan? Iron Ox should change his name to Boast from now on. Yu Huiqing's players were not to be outdone. Can level represent everything? Not happy with the solo. Neither side was willing to give in, and the forum moderators' hands were tired from deleting the posts. Of course, there were also people who took advantage of the commotion. There was a post on the most conspicuous position on the front page. It was very eye-catching and was pushed to the top by countless sock puppets. Chapter 399. A story about Yu Huiqing's general store and the black-hearted merchant, Iron Ox. This post was made anonymously. The post first described the relationship between the miscellaneous goods store and Wang Yu. Then, it added oil and vinegar to describe how Wang Yu's miscellaneous goods store relied on intermediate health potions to raise prices and monopolize the market. Finally, the post pointed out that Wang Yu's general store took advantage of the game's official launch to purchase potion ingredients and disrupt the market. The person who made the post acted as if he had seen it with his own eyes and analyzed the situation clearly and logically. He then found the video of Wang Yu violently chasing away the troublemakers at the general store and posted it at the end of the post. In an instant, this post became one of the top 10 most popular posts on the forum. Old players of Yu Huiqing often bought items from the general store and knew that the general store's prices were definitely better than the consignment stores. This was definitely the work of someone. However, after the game's official launch, a large number of new players entered the game. They did not even know who Iron Ox was, so they followed suit and started scolding him. Occasionally, those who spoke up for Wang Yu were also drowned in the scolding. I've been to that general store. Damn, one potion costs 50 gold. That's crazy poor. Damn, 50 gold. How black-hearted. After the game's official launch, the price of gold returned to normal. 50 gold was 5,000 yuan. 5,000 yuan was enough to buy a decent piece of equipment. Based on this calculation, the general store was not only black-hearted, it was also a scam. However, what most players did not know was that due to the skyrocketing price of ingredients, the cost of potions was already dozens of gold. Even if someone knew the price of the ingredients, they would point out in the post that the price was deliberately raised by Wang Yu. There was no lack of moral emperors on the internet. Anything that had nothing to do with them would be scolded for a few days. Moreover, this price did indeed affect the interests of the majority of players. Thus, it did not take long for the dispute between two experts to become a one-sided crusade. The person involved in this matter, Wang Yu, knew nothing about it. Wang Yu had not been on the forum for a long time. However, after going offline, Wang Yu saw Mu Zixian's angry face. Too shameless, too shameless. Mu Zixian knocked on the table as she muttered to herself. What's wrong? Didn't your manager pay you? Wang Yu asked curiously. Today was the last day of the month, and also Mu Zixian's last day of work. Wang Yu thought it was because of work. No, look at the forum. Mu Zixian angrily turned the computer to Wang Yu. Oh. After reading the post, Wang Yu touched his chin and said calmly, why bother with them? They're just spouting nonsense. Mu Zixian said anxiously, they're slandering us. Now that there are so many people supporting us, our shop is finished. Wang Yu said unhurriedly, it's not that exaggerated. The prices of the things in our store are all reasonable. The people who criticize and retort are the ones who don't buy. Even if no one buys from our store, with the quality of our goods, we don't have to worry about selling them. Wang Yu did not have social experience, but it did not mean that he was stupid. Wang Yu could see it clearly at a glance. He knew that it was useless to be anxious. Good things would always be sold. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Mu Zixian instantly calmed down. She thought for a moment and said, yes, you're right. Currently, besides Xiaobing's studio, only the grocery store sold intermediate potions. Now that Xiaobing Studio's stock had been sold out, only Wang Yu's shop was left. Previously, when Xiaobing Studio put such a high price on the consignment shop, there were people who bought it. Now, there would definitely be people who bought it. Just as the husband and wife were talking, there was a knock on the bedroom door. Come in, it's not locked. Mu Zixian shouted. Li Shui pushed the door open and walked in. Brother Yu, sister-in-law. Xiao Shui, it's so late. What's the matter? Mu Zixian asked curiously. Li Shui said, Xiaobing Studio also opened shop. Hearing that, Mu Zixian immediately became alert. How's their business? Very popular. Li Shui didn't describe the scene, but from her tone, it could be seen that Xiaobing Studio's business was definitely not ordinary. Didn't they sell out their potions? Mu Zixian exclaimed in surprise. Hearing that, Wang Yu also frowned. He faintly felt a trace of unease. They're sold out, but it seems like they can also make intermediate potions now. Li Shui said. Wang Yu nodded and said, Is that so? The game had been open for a month. It was normal for people to train their apothecary skills to the advanced level. Moreover, the arena's point store sold the recipe for intermediate potions. Although it was very expensive with the studio's means, it was not a problem. Therefore, it was not surprising that they could make this potion. Looks like we can only let Wuji sell the materials. That way, at least we won't lose money. Wang Yu thought for a moment and said. Li Shui said with an uneasy expression, I'm afraid that's not possible. The people from Xiaobing Studio are wantonly buying materials in the market again. The price is even lower than during the open beta. This, Wang Yu was dumbfounded. The materials were the Quanjin School's last resort. Even at the last step, as long as they had the materials, they could still make a huge fortune by selling them. However, the people from Xiaobing Studio were buying the materials again, and the price was even lower than before. The price was lower than during the open beta, and now it was 20 times lower. If they sold all the materials, everyone's assets in Xuanzhen would shrink by 20 times. Damn, it had to be said that Xiaobing Studio's move was much more ruthless than Wuji's. At least Xiaobing Studio could sell the materials at the original price if they didn't use them, but Wang Yu was back to square one. Brother Yu, what do we do? Li Shui asked anxiously. In fact, the person Xuanzhen didn't have to worry about was Li Shui. She was a technical worker, so she could make a living wherever she went. Wang Yu said indifferently, It's fine. It's easy to get money, and I don't have to worry about it. Go back and rest. Most of Wang Yu's funds came from Blood Red War Flag's money. The 20,000 gold that he gambled was a windfall for Wang Yu. All right, Li Shui glanced at Wang Yu and Mu Zixian, closed the door, and walked out of the bedroom. Wife, our money is gone. You won't scold me, right? Wang Yu asked dejectedly. Mu Zixian smiled and said, What are you talking about? I actually want to hit you. Then hit me. Mu Zixian glared at Wang Yu and said, Forget it. I'll feel bad if I don't hit you, and I'll feel even worse if I hit you. I feel bad too. Wang Yu laughed when he heard that. He knew that Mu Zixian didn't blame him. But even though he said that, it would be a lie to say that he didn't feel bad when so much money was gone. What do we do now? Should we sell the potions at a lower price? Mu Zixian asked. So much money had gone down the drain, and it was better to get back as much as possible. Wang Yu said, Forget it. We'll take it one step at a time. Tomorrow, we'll go ask Wuji. He threw all his money in, and he definitely won't let this go. The next day, when he went online, the Xuanzhen channel was dead silent. Mingdu, who usually spammed the screen for a living, didn't say a word. Many people left messages for Wang Yu. Let me know if you need help. Especially Blood Red War Flag, who directly said to Wang Yu, I want as many intermediate potions as you have. It was obvious that this matter wasn't only known to Wang Yu. Thank you, everyone. It's fine. Wang Yu thanked them one by one. Around 9 o'clock, Wuji went online. The first thing Wuji said when he went online was, Everyone, come to the guild encampment. When Wang Yu arrived at the encampment's meeting hall, the others had already arrived. I'm sorry, everyone. After Wang Yu sat down, Wuji stood up and bowed to everyone. This time, Wuji gave everyone quite a fright. This was definitely the first time this kid had ever apologized to someone. It was obvious that Wuji didn't look too good. This guy had always been a scourge to others. Who knew that he would be killed by someone else? With everyone's understanding of him, they knew that money didn't affect him much, but the mental blow was definitely not small. Wang Yu said with a smile, It's just a small matter. Don't worry about it. Wang Yu was speaking from the bottom of his heart. Don't worry about how Wuji treated outsiders. He was absolutely good to his own people. It was just a loss of some gold. If they exchanged it for cash, it would be considered bankruptcy. In the game, it was game currency. Falling out with a good friend over a small matter was something a brat would do. Even Wang Yu, who lost the most, didn't think it was a big deal. Needless to say, the others also didn't care. Mingdu, the B*TCH, even joked, TSK, Wuji's apology is so comforting. It's definitely worth more than those lousy gold. Come, say it to us again. F*CKU. Wuji glared at Mingdu, and the atmosphere in the meeting hall eased a lot. After the joke, Wuji said solemnly, "Last night, I thought of a way to remedy the situation." "Did you?" everyone asked. Although they wouldn't blame Wuji, it would be better if there was a way to remedy the situation. "Yes, there are two ways," Wuji said in a deep voice. "The first way is to take this opportunity to continue purchasing materials and fight to the death with Xiaobing Studio." Hearing this, everyone said in unison, "Say the second way." The lousy way that Wuji mentioned was a simple and crude way to fight to the death with money. They didn't have any money, and they still wanted to compete with the studio for wealth. Wasn't this a lousy idea? It was better not to mention it. The second way is more difficult. Wuji hesitated and said, "If we want to reverse the situation in the current situation, we need to have better potions." Hearing the second way, everyone was speechless. The only potion that was better than an intermediate potion was an advanced potion. Not to mention how difficult it was to get a master pharmacist. Advanced potion recipes were hard to come by. Even the point store in the arena didn't have such things. Saying this was basically no different than not saying it. "I personally prefer the first way," Wuji said. "Do we have money?" Everyone sighed. Iron Ox's brother seems to be the boss of Zongheng Studio. We can ask him for help. Everyone lowered their heads again and said nothing. This time, the person who lost the most was Wang Yu. They couldn't be the only one. At this moment, Wang Yu suddenly said, "I think the second way is more reliable." Chapter 400. Genius 1 Second Remember Net. Providing you with exciting novels to read. Xiao Shui. Has your alchemy reached the intermediate level? Wang Yu turned to ask Li Shui. Li Shui said, "It wasn't much to begin with. Yesterday, Brother Dao Shui gave me an alchemy treasure chest and gave me quite a bit of EXP for the secondary profession. Now, I've reached the intermediate level." Alchemists were the same as potioneers. The higher the rank of the potion they made, the higher their proficiency. Ever since Li Shui became an alchemist, she had been making intermediate potions without a break, so her proficiency naturally increased very quickly. Even without the treasure chest, it would only take a few days for her to become an intermediate alchemist. Then you should be able to learn this formula, right? Wang Yu took out a piece of dirty parchment. Is this the recipe for an advanced potion?" Everyone asked doubtfully when they saw Wang Yu take out the parchment. "Not bad," Wang Yu said as he opened up the status panel. Advanced alchemy recipe. After learning, one can concoct advanced recovery potions. F***CK. Why do you have everything? Everyone was completely stunned. The value of intermediate potion recipes was already so high that it made one's hair stand on end. The value and drop rate of advanced potion recipes were like epic and legendary equipment. They had always existed in Legends and were items that would only appear in the later stages of the game. Who would have thought that someone would be able to obtain one so early in the game? Even Mu Zixian said in disbelief, "I didn't even know you had this thing." Wang Yu smiled and said, "I just thought of it." This advanced alchemy recipe was something Wang Yu had purchased from a hidden dungeon in the Elven City. Back then, it had sold for 2,000 gold. In the past, 2,000 gold was equivalent to 20,000 gold. Wang Yu had hidden such a precious item in the innermost corner of his ring space. If not for Wuji mentioning it, he would have forgotten about it. This thing is too valuable, Brother Yui. As a professional potion maker, Li Shui naturally understood the value of this recipe. Currently, Reincarnation had over 100 million players in the local server alone. The demand for potions from these players was unimaginable. At this stage of the game, anyone who learned how to concoct advanced potions would become the most valuable potion supplier for Reincarnation. Hence, although Wang Yu had clearly marked the price of this potion as 2,000 gold when he had purchased it, Its value would be unimaginable if you were to sell it in a consignment shop or auction house. Li Shui's alchemist quest was completed with Wang Yu's help, and the intermediate potion recipe was provided by Wang Yu for free. It was also because of these things that Li Shui went from a poor gold collecting member to the most promising player in the game. With all these reasons, Li Shui knew that Wang Yu did not really trust her. However, the two of them were not related, and Wang Yu had already helped her enough. Li Shui could not accept such a big gift from him. Wang Yu also understood the principle of not accepting a reward without doing anything, so he smiled and said, "I'm just trying to make up for our losses. Don't think too much about it." Mingdu clicked his tongue and said, "The price of this recipe is much more valuable than the ones we lost." Mingdu was right. An advanced potion recipe was definitely worth more than the gold we lost. This was also why everyone felt that the second method was unreliable. Wang Yu said, "What do you know? We're just trying to make a name for ourselves, don't you know?" No matter how valuable the recipe was, if he gave it to his friend, he would still get benefits in the future. However, if the gold went to Xiaobing's studio, Wang Yu felt disgusted just thinking about it. Everyone was silent when they heard this. Indeed, Xuanzhen had never suffered such a big loss before. However, it was too impulsive to use an advanced potion recipe to make a name for themselves. Li Shui still shook her head, not daring to take it. The stalemate between the two made everyone in Xuanzhen gasp in amazement. Mingdu said with dissatisfaction, "That's enough. This thing is so expensive that my heart is trembling. Is there any meaning in you guys pushing it around?" Wang Yu and Li Shui blushed. After thinking about it, they still sat back down. In the end, it was Mu Zixian who stood up and said, "How about this? Let's consider it as a shareholder. After deducting the cost, we'll take 30% of Little Shui's profits. That should be fine, right?" Li Shui heard this and thought for a moment. Finally, she nodded and said, "And as long as sister-in-law doesn't think it's too little." Mu Zixian smiled and said, 30% is not a small amount. After all, we're only offering one recipe. But that's the most valuable thing. Without your alchemy, no matter how valuable it is, it's just a virtual tool. All right, it's settled then. Since the conversation had reached this point, Li Shui could not refuse anymore. She could only agree. "After I go offline, I'll go downstairs to print the contract." It had to be said that Mu Zixian handled this matter much better than Wang Yu. Although the relationship between friends could not be measured by value, it also varied from person to person. If it was someone else in Xuanzhen, these guys would definitely accept it without a second thought. However, Li Shui and Wang Yu's relationship was not that close. Especially since the two of them were men and women, they had to be more careful about this. Otherwise, if one of them thought too much, it might cause trouble. Take Yang Guo and Guixiang, for example. If you didn't like them, you shouldn't treat them so well. Chapter 401. Stronghold Fortress. After seeing the item in Wuji's hands, Wang Yu and the others instantly understood what Wuji was thinking. Stronghold Fortress was the same as high-grade potion recipes. It was one of the most valuable items in the game. Moreover, it wasn't like high-grade potions which would depreciate in the later stages of the game. No matter what stage of the game, the price of Stronghold would always be high. The most important thing was that potions were consumables for all players. The funds would slowly come back, and the users of Strongholds were the big guilds. These big guilds didn't lack money at all and could definitely solve Xuanzhen's current problem. "Who are you planning to sell this to?" Chun Xiang asked. If he wanted to sell it, he wouldn't have to worry about finding a buyer for such a precious treasure like a stronghold. The key was whether or not the price could match the item's value. Of course, throwing it into the system auction was the best method in theory. However, the auction had a time limit and it would take at least 48 hours from start to finish. Moreover, the system auction was different from a manual auction. The system auction would just throw the items there and let the players call out the price within the specified time. Players were smart, and when they saw something good, they definitely wouldn't call out the price. They would wait for the last second and then sell it for a ridiculous price. Blood Alliance. Wuji smiled. Blood Alliance's blood-red war flag's price will be higher than others. Chun Xiang asked curiously. There was a saying that one had to compare goods. There were hundreds of main cities in the game and countless guilds. There were also hundreds of large-scale guilds with residences. If one confirmed a guild, there would definitely be a difference in the price. Yes. Why? Because Blood Alliance's residence is a middle-grade one. Wuji said. I see. Chun Xiang understood. Right now, most of the guild residences were low-grade residences. Strongholds could raise guild residences by 2 grades, so when other guilds upgraded their residences, they would be high-grade residences. Only Blood Alliance's residences would be villages. Raising residences was the same as raising guilds. It got harder and harder. Compared to raising a village, the amount of time and effort needed to raise a high-grade residence wasn't the same. More importantly, the Blood Alliance is a guild that we're friends with. If we don't give them such a good thing, it won't make sense. Let's just treat it as a win-win situation. Wuji said. Yes, I agree. Wang Yu raised his hand in agreement. Wang Yu was a person who knew how to repay kindness. Although Blood Red War Flag was an idiot, he had stood up for them when Xuanjin was in danger. It was clear that this person was worth befriending. Even if Blood Red War Flag had said those words to buy people's hearts, they had managed to buy Wang Yu's heart. The people of Xuanjin had always been undisciplined. After Wang Yu, Wuji, and Chun Xiang, the 3 people who were capable of making decisions, made a decision. The others also unconditionally agreed. Blood Red War Flag was a very loyal person. After discussing with Wuji, Blood Red War Flag finally settled on a price that both Xuanjin and the Blood Alliance were satisfied with. Just as the system announced that the Blood Alliance had built the first village in the game, Xuanjin's high-grade potions were also placed on the counter of Wang Yu's general store. The cost of high-grade potions and intermediate-grade potions weren't too different. Adding on the fact that Yu Xiaobing Studio had lowered the price of the ingredients, the high-grade potions sold in the general store were only slightly higher than the intermediate-grade potions. The instant recovery ratio of intermediate-grade potions was 30, while the high-grade potions were 60. The price difference between the two wasn't too big, but the stats were twice as different. The price-to-performance ratio was obvious. Profit was always the best weapon to shut up troublemakers. As soon as the high-level potions were released, the posts of the so-called black-hearted businessmen from Xiaobing Studio were ignored by everyone except for their own sock puppets. The rumors also fell apart on their own. The general store was still the same general store. What was different from a few days ago was that the originally popular Xiaobing's general store was completely deserted apart from a few newbies. Facing such a scene, the boss of Xiaobing Studio, Li Xiaobing, was furious. You guys said that opening a store would make money, but our earnings these past few days aren't even enough to rent the store. Who can tell me what's going on? In Li Xiaobing's office, the faces of the leaders of Xiaobing Studio were ashen. Old Five, you're the one who came up with the idea. Explain it to me. Li Xiaobing angrily asked Old Five. Li Xiaobing was a merchant and also the leader of the entire team. Naturally, he wouldn't get angry at his employees over such a small amount of rent, but this time, he was truly afraid. Li Xiaobing had put all of his energy into the potion business. Facing Wuji's harassment, he easily saw through it and even played a trick on Xuanjin. He originally thought that the opponent would be completely defeated, but who knew that in less than 3 days, the situation would completely turn around. When people were afraid, they would go crazy, and Li Xiaobing was no exception. Old Five wanted to cry. I didn't think that they would be able to make high-grade potions. Old Five still couldn't believe that high-grade potions would appear at this stage. High-grade potions? Li Xiaobing snorted coldly. Then do you know what they're doing now? I don't know. Old Five was in charge of so many businesses in so many cities, and he was very busy. When he realized that Yu Huicheng and Xuanjin's group had counterattacked, it was already this morning. They are buying a lot of materials, Li Xiaobing said while gritting his teeth. Not only Old Five, but everyone else in the office was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. They still have money to buy materials. How could they dare to fight us head-on after losing so much? Whispers could be heard in the office. Logically speaking, as long as a person lost everything they had, they wouldn't make another move. Who knew that not only were the Chuanjian sex gamblers not defeated, but they also became ruthless and fought to the death with Xiaobing's workspace. But on second thought, it was not difficult to understand. They could make high-grade potions, so they did have some confidence to fight to the death. Then what should we do now? Old Five asked in fear. The only thing that Xiaobing's studio could control in this battle was the price of the materials in the market. In the end, they unexpectedly showed their trump card of an intermediate-grade potion, which was to defeat Chuanjian. If Chuanjian wanted to turn the tables again, they could only invest a lot of money. If they invested more than Xiaobing's studio, they could regain control of the market price. If they did not invest enough, they could only lose as much as they invested. But now that Chuanjian had the high-grade potion as their trump card, they were no longer afraid of the problem of price increase. And they also showed a stance of fighting to the death. If they could not find a big name of the same level, all the investment of Xiaobing's studio for a month would be in vain. However, there were not so many pharmacists who could make high-grade potions. Chapter 402. System Notification. Mighty Tyrant's party is attacking you. You have 180 seconds to defend yourself. Wang Yu glanced at the shield warrior after receiving the notification. So this guy is called Mighty Tyrant. What a show-off. Damn, what the hell? Not just the Wind and Cloud members, but all the players present were stunned when they saw their spells and arrows blocked. Even Red Spider Lily exclaimed in surprise, It's really you, Iron Ox. It wouldn't have been surprising if Wang Yu had dodged the attack. His class had high agility. Even a useless Grandmaster of Combat could do that easily. However, Wang Yu didn't dodge. He blocked all the attacks with his sword, including the boss's poison arrows. What was even more unbelievable was that he didn't move at all. He didn't even move his feet. Boss, just fight. Why are you making life difficult for a girl? She didn't do it on purpose. Wang Yu swung his sword and deflected another poison arrow from the Poison Frog Emperor. He stared at the shield warrior called Xiongba without blinking. Mighty Tyrant was wearing a full set of silver equipment. He was no weakling. When he saw Wang Yu's skill, he immediately understood that he had encountered an expert. Although Wang Yu was holding a one-handed sword, he was dressed like a fighter. This shocked Mighty Tyrant even more. He couldn't help but ask, May I know who you are? How dare you interfere with the Wind and Cloud Guild's business? Iron Ox. Wang Yu dragged Red Spider Lily and retreated a few steps away from the Poison Frog Emperor's aggro range. Then, he replied abruptly. Whether it was an enemy or a friend, Wang Yu had always treated people humbly. He never said things like, You don't deserve to know my name. Of course, Wang Yu knew that his name carried a lot of weight in Yu Huiqing's eyes. To avoid unnecessary trouble, subduing the enemy without fighting was the highest level. But this time, Wang Yu miscalculated. If it was a veteran player of Yu Huiqing, they would naturally be familiar with the name Iron Ox. However, after the system was officially launched and a large number of new players came in, Iron Ox was just a beast in their minds. At most, he was made of a different material. Some well-read people even thought of Iron Ox by the Yellow River. The average level of the veteran players was around 25. Apart from Tyrant's group, among all the players here, only Red Spider Lily was above level 25. Naturally, there were only a few who knew Wang Yu. When they saw Wang Yu say his name in such a pretentious manner, no one felt afraid. Instead, most people thought it was funny. Although Tyrant's group's levels were not low and their strength was not weak, it was obvious that they were not locals of Yu Huiqing. They did not feel much about the name Wang Yu, but vaguely felt that it was the name of an expert. However, the name Iron Ox made Tyrant think of something else. May I know how Sister Nio's miscellaneous goods is related to you, sir? Tyrant suddenly asked. Wang Yu replied, I opened it. You are from Chuanjian? Yes. Wang Yu nodded. Tyrant's expression suddenly turned grave. At the same time, he ordered in the channel. He is one of the people the boss wants to kill. Kill him. The group received the order and threw their skills at Wang Yu again. Since the members of Wind and Cloud had witnessed Wang Yu's skills earlier, they did not use Ice Spike, Focus Shot, or other non-directional skills. Instead, they used Ice Spike and Homing Arrow. There was no need to talk about Homing Arrow, while Icicle was a level 20 directional skill from Ice Mages. It created an icicle under the target's body. Its attack power wasn't that great, but it was quite wretched. The two skills did not have high damage, but they could not withstand the attacks of a dozen people at the same time. Fortunately, Wang Yu sensed the enemy's murderous intent in advance. The instant before they threw their skills, he switched his weapon to a staff and pushed himself off the ground, jumping behind the venomous arrow Frog Emperor. Just when the players from Guild of Wind and Cloud activated their skills, Wang Yu's figure flashed, and he disappeared instantly. All the skills from Guild of Wind and Cloud landed on the venomous arrow Frog Emperor. The control effect of ice was strengthened in the swamp. Moreover, when the speed reduction effect stacked, the target would be frozen. Although the beast-type boss had high resistance to control, it was still frozen into an ice cube after being hit by a dozen strengthened ice spikes. Initially, when he saw Wang Yu escaping, Mighty Tyrant was cursing Wang Yu for being cunning. However, when he saw that the boss was hit with an unexpected effect, Mighty Tyrant was overjoyed. He immediately ordered the players to focus on the boss. The speed reduction effect could be stacked, but a strong control effect, like freezing, could not be stacked. After a round of attacks, the ice cube shattered. Just when Mighty Tyrant was about to order his subordinates to freeze the boss again, he suddenly heard a commotion behind him. Then, the two magicians behind Mighty Tyrant were thrown out. Everyone knew that frogs were interested in flying creatures in front of them. At that moment, the venomous arrow Frog Emperor was in battle mode. When it saw the two magicians not far away, it opened its mouth wide and rolled its tongue, swallowing the two magicians into its stomach. After the two players entered its stomach, the venomous arrow Frog Emperor's health that had dropped earlier was instantly restored to full. At the same time, its body flashed. The second round of freezing effect from Guild of Wind and Cloud did not take effect. Seeing that two of their teammates had been attacked, the members of Wind and Cloud turned around in a panic. At that moment, they saw another two magicians being thrown into the venomous arrow Frog Emperor's mouth. There was also a Grandmaster of Combat at the place where the two magicians were standing. It was none other than Wang Yu. In just a short while, 4 of his teammates had been killed. Mighty Tyrant was furious. Without a word, he buried his head and rammed into Wang Yu. However, the space in front of Mighty Tyrant was empty. He did not feel that he had rammed into anyone. Then, with a loud boom, Mighty Tyrant lost a chunk of his health. Qigong Master's level 25 skill, After Image Fist, and level 30 skill, After Image Blast. The former used magic to create an immobile doppelganger. The latter, when the doppelganger was detonated or destroyed, would deal magic damage to enemies within a certain range. After Image Fist, when trained to the highest level, could create 10 doppelgangers. Coupled with After Image Blast, it was a very powerful damage output skill for Grandmasters in the late stages of the Grandmaster class. Fortunately, Wang Yu had just learned these two skills and had not mastered them. He only had one doppelganger. Mighty Tyrant was blown up, but his health did not even drop 1/10. After the After Image Blast, Mighty Tyrant saw Wang Yu's real body next to it. With a hook of his finger, he used Provoke and hooked Wang Yu over. Wang Yu smiled slightly. With a light leap, he swung one leg and started spinning. Level 30 Monk skill, Whirlwind Kick. In midair, he launched 3 kicks at all enemies around him. Each kick dealt 170 damage. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 4:03. The area that Wang Yu was in could spawn 4 poison dart frogs a minute. With Cloud Grasp's timing, every time he killed the last poison dart frog, a new one would spawn. His efficiency was quite high. In just 20 minutes, Wang Yu had killed 80 poison dart frogs and completed half of the guild quest. As Wang Yu's position was rather remote, no one noticed that there was a Grandmaster of Combat here. His efficiency was even higher than that of an Ice Mage. Get out of the way, get out of the way. This is Wind and Cloud's territory. Go to the other side. Just as Wang Yu was about to rest after finishing off the monster in her hands, a large group of people suddenly rushed into the crowd while shouting. The leader of the group was a shield warrior. The shield warrior had activated his equipment's effects, and his silver-white equipment glowed with blue light. Behind him was a team of ice mages who were equally arrogant. Behind them were a few holy feather priests and elven archers. They were waving their weapons at the players on the other side. The players of the new race were generally not high-leveled. It seemed that these people were leading the new members of the guild. Seeing this, Wang Yu could not help but frown. The poison dart frogs spawned in an area with densely packed monsters. These people were driving everyone to an area with fewer monsters. Wasn't this a little too overbearing? What surprised Wang Yu the most was that not a single one of these players resisted. Instead, most of them seemed to be used to it. When they saw this group of players approaching, many of them ran to the opposite side without needing to be driven away, occupying a relatively good spot. Of course, Wang Yu had been in the game for a long time and knew that a person's heart was unpredictable. At this time, seeing that everyone was meekly accepting the adversity, she couldn't be bothered to care. She didn't want to be some kind of savior. She just stayed in the corner and killed her own monsters. After Red Spider Lily was driven away, she ran back helplessly. "Old cow, come over here. Don't stay there. They're very fierce." Red Spider Lily ran to the opposite side of Wang Yu and shouted at Wang Yu. Wang Yu smiled. "It's fine. I'll leave after a few more waves. I won't be a hindrance to them." "Then I won't bother with you anymore," Red Spider Lily said. Thank you." Wang Yu nodded and smiled at Manjusaka. Wang Yu had a pretty good impression of this girl. She could still think of reminding Wang Yu at this time. It could be seen that she was also a warm-hearted person. It was rare to see such a warm-hearted person nowadays. There were only a dozen or so people from Wind and Cloud Guild. The area they occupied was large enough, so Wang Yu didn't attract their attention even though he hid in a corner. After another 10 minutes, the 120 poison dart frogs were finally cleared. Wang Yu was about to turn around and leave when he suddenly heard a loud frog croak. Quack, quack! Then, on the opposite side of Wang Yu, where Manjusaka was standing, a poison dart frog the size of a car crawled out of the swamp. Poison Arrow Frog Emperor HP 500000P 500000 skills. Poison Arrow Tongue Whip Devour. Special trait Swamp Walk. A boss has spawned. Everyone exclaimed when they saw the Poison Arrow Frog Emperor. In Rebirth, the wild bosses' spawn times were quite random. It was almost impossible to find them. Silver and above bosses were even rarer. For example, Erta's spawn point was at the entrance of Chuanjin. However, in the past month, Wang Yu had only seen it twice. One of them was because he was guarding the encampment. From this, it could be seen how rare wild bosses were. After playing the game for so long, most players hadn't even seen a gold boss. When they saw the Poison Arrow Frog Emperor, they surrounded it excitedly. When Wind and Cloud Guild saw the boss spawn, they obviously couldn't sit still. Under the lead of the Shield Warrior, they crossed the swamp and came close to the boss. The Shield Warrior pointed at everyone and said, "What are you looking at? Do you think you can kill this boss? If you don't want to die, get out of the way." The Shield Warrior was right. The players here were basically solo mages. No matter how much the Poison Arrow Frog was countered by ice magic, it was still a gold boss. Without a tank to pull aggro and a healer to heal them, they would probably die. However, not all of the players were cowards. If it was a normal monster, the Wind and Cloud Guild had a bad reputation, so they would let them go. However, when it came to a rare monster like the boss, who would be willing to let them go? Seeing that the people from the Wind and Cloud Guild were so overbearing, the players were unhappy. "Who does Wind and Cloud Guild think you are? You want us to leave?" "That's right. The boss isn't a pet of yours." For a moment, everyone started scolding them. Some even shouted nonsense slogans like, "All the bosses in the world belong to those who are virtuous." The Shield Warrior said with a dark expression, "I gave you face, but you don't want it. Are you leaving or not?" "No." The person at the front said righteously. As soon as he finished speaking, arrows and magic instantly engulfed him. Everyone was so frightened that they took a step back. "Who else?" the Shield Warrior asked provocatively, although there were many players on the other side that didn't know each other. Naturally, no one would stand up for the player who had died. Facing the shield warrior's overbearing aura, everyone chose to retreat. Ribbit, the poison arrow frog emperor, seemed to be mocking the weakness of the players. It grinned and jumped forward. Manjusaka was very close to the poison arrow frog emperor. It was in her nature to be afraid of such cold-blooded creatures. When she saw the poison arrow frog emperor jump towards her, she screamed and threw an ice mirror at it. 651, a bright red damage number, floated above the poison arrow frog emperor. Damn, kill her and pull the boss back. The shield warrior was enraged when he saw someone daring to steal the boss. He gave the order and magic arrows flew towards Manjusaka. At the same time, the poison arrow frog emperor's poison arrows flew towards Manjusaka. The trajectory of icicle wasn't fast, and wind and cloud guild only had 3 archers. If Manjusaka was an archer or a thief, she could still run away from the enemy's attack, even if she couldn't block it. However, she was a mage with short legs. She was dumbfounded when she saw the arrows flying towards her. Just as Red Spider Lily was waiting to be killed, her vision suddenly darkened. A tall figure wielding a sword appeared in front of Red Spider Lily, blocking her path. Clank! Chapter 404. System Notification. Xiongba's team is attacking you. You have 180 seconds to defend yourself. Wang Yu glanced at the shield warrior after receiving the notification. So this guy is called Xiongba. What show-off? Damn, what the hell? Not only the Wind and Cloud guild members, but all the players present were stunned when they saw the spells and arrows being blocked. Even Red Spider Lily exclaimed softly in surprise. Iron Ox. It's really you. If Wang Yu had dodged the attacks, it wouldn't have been surprising. Classes with high agility could easily do that, even a useless class like Grandmaster of Combat. However, Wang Yu didn't dodge. He blocked all the attacks with his sword, including the boss's poison arrows. What was even more unbelievable was that he didn't move at all. He didn't even move his feet. Boss, just fight. Why are you making life difficult for a girl? She didn't do it on purpose. Wang Yu swung his sword and blocked another venomous arrow frog emperor's poison arrow. He stared at the shield warrior called Xiongba. Xiongba was wearing a full set of silver equipment, so he wasn't a weakling. When he saw Wang Yu's skill, he immediately knew that he had encountered an expert. Although Wang Yu was wielding a one-handed sword, his Grandmaster of Combat attire shocked Xiongba. He couldn't help but ask, "May I know who you are? How dare you interfere with the Wind and Cloud Guild's business?" Iron Ox. Wang Yu dragged Red Spider Lily and retreated a few steps away from the venomous arrow frog emperor's aggro range. Then he suddenly replied. Whether it was an enemy or a friend, Wang Yu had always treated people with humility. He never said things like, "You don't deserve to know my name." Of course, Wang Yu also knew that his name carried a lot of weight in Yuhuicheng. To avoid unnecessary trouble, subduing the enemy without fighting was the highest level. However, this time, Wang Yu miscalculated. If it was a veteran player of Yuhuicheng, they would naturally be familiar with the name Iron Ox. However, after the official launch of the system, a large number of new players entered the game. Iron Ox was just an animal in their minds. At most, he was made of a different material. Some well-read players even thought of Iron Ox by the Yellow River. The average level of veteran players was around 25. Apart from Xiongba's group, Red Spider Lily was the only one who was above 25. Naturally, only a few knew Wang Yu. No one was afraid of Wang Yu when he said his name in such a pretentious manner. Instead, most of them felt that it was hilarious. Although Xiongba's group had high levels, they weren't weak either. It was obvious that they weren't locals of Yuhui City. They didn't have much of an impression of Wang Yu's name. They only vaguely felt that it was the name of an expert. However, the name Iron Ox reminded Xiongba of something else. How is Sister Nio's miscellaneous goods related to you? Xiongba suddenly asked. I opened it. Wang Yu replied. You're from Xuanjin? Yes. Wang Yu nodded. Xiongba's expression turned cold. He gave an order in the channel. He's one of the people that the boss wants to kill. Kill him. Everyone received the order and used their skills on Wang Yu again. Since the members of Wind and Cloud had witnessed Wang Yu's capabilities, they did not use ice spikes or focus shots, which were non-directional. Instead, they used ice spikes and homing arrows. Homing arrow was a skill that was used by ice mages. Ice spike was a level 20 directional skill. It created an ice spike under the target. The damage was not great, but it was quite wretched. The damage of these two skills was not high, but it could not withstand the combined attacks of a dozen people. Fortunately, Wang Yu sensed the murderous intent from the other side. The instant before they used their skills, he switched his weapon to his staff. He pushed himself against the ground and jumped on top of the venomous arrow Frog Emperor. When the players from Guild of Wind and Cloud activated their skills, Wang Yu disappeared in a flash. The skills from Guild of Wind and Cloud landed on the venomous arrow Frog Emperor. The control effect of the ice element was strengthened in the swamp. Moreover, when the speed reduction effect stacked, the target would be forcibly frozen. Although the beast-type boss had relatively high resistance to control, it was still frozen into an ice cube after being hit by more than 10 strengthened ice spikes. Originally, when he saw that Wang Yu had escaped, Xiongba was secretly cursing Wang Yu for being cunning. However, when he saw that the boss had an unexpected effect, Xiongba couldn't help but feel joy in his heart. He hurriedly gave the command to change targets to the boss. The speed reduction effect could be stacked, but a strong control effect like freeze could not. After a round of attacks, the ice shattered. Just when Xiongba was about to order his subordinates to freeze the boss again, he heard a commotion behind him. Then, the two mages behind him were thrown out. Everyone knew that frogs were interested in the creatures that were flying around them. At that moment, the venomous arrow Frog Emperor was in battle mode. When it saw the two mages not far away, it opened its mouth and rolled its tongue, swallowing the two mages. After the two players entered its stomach, the venomous arrow Frog Emperor's health was instantly restored. At the same time, its body flashed. The second round of freeze from Guild of Wind and Cloud did not take effect. Seeing that two of their teammates were attacked, the people from Guild of Wind and Cloud turned around hurriedly. Then, they saw two more mages being thrown into the venomous arrow Frog Emperor's mouth. There was a Grandmaster of Combat at the place where the two mages were standing. It was none other than Wang Yu. In just a short amount of time, 4 of his teammates had been killed. Xiongba was enraged. Without saying a word, he charged at Wang Yu. As a result, the space in front of Xiongba was empty. He didn't feel that he had hit anyone. Following that, he heard a boom, and his health bar dropped by a large chunk. Qigong Master's level 25 skill, After Image Punch, and level 30 skill, After Image Blast. The former used magic to create an immobile doppelganger. The latter used magic to deal magic damage to enemies within a certain range when the doppelganger was detonated or destroyed. When trained to the highest level, After Image Punch could create 10 doppelgangers. Together with After Image Blast, it was a very powerful damage output skill for Grandmasters in the later stages. Luckily, Wang Yu just learned these 2 skills and was not very familiar with them. He only had 1 doppelganger. When Xiongba was hit by the explosion, he lost less than 1/10 of his health. After the After Image Blast shattered, Xiongba saw Wang Yu's real body next to it. He hooked his finger and used Provoke to lure Wang Yu over. Wang Yu smiled and leaped lightly. He swung one leg and started spinning. Level 30 Monk's skill, Whirlwind Kick. He could kick all enemies around him 3 times in the air. Each kick dealt 170 damage. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 405. Xiongba was the strongest person in this group. If even Xiongba was killed, then there was no doubt that the others would also die. Wang Yu punched and kicked, killing 2 mages and pinching 3 to death. The rest were thrown into the venom Dart Frog Emperor's mouth. The 3 archers tried to escape with their agility, but before they could get far, they were licked to death by the venom Dart Frog Emperor that came to help. Whether it was being beaten to death by Wang Yu or being swallowed by the poison arrow Frog Emperor, it was just a matter of closing one's eyes. However, the feeling of being licked to death by the poison arrow Frog Emperor was definitely not something an ordinary person could endure. The three archers retreated to the spawn point after reviving. Their eyes were dim, as if they had lost hope in the game. How is it? Did you kill the Beastrice, TCH? Mighty Tyrant was still asking about the situation in the team channel. The team channel was silent. We're in the middle of a fight, can't we talk? Mighty Tyrant asked in the channel. The mages replied, I don't know, we're dead. Dead? Who's not dead? 10,000 returning arrows, and the others are not dead yet, right? The mages said, 10,000 returning arrows was one of the three archers. As soon as the mages finished speaking, the three archers went offline. F***CK, what's going on? Mighty Tyrant was dumbfounded. The Wind Cloud Guild, a guild under Xiaobing's studio, was based in Light Saint City. The Wind Cloud Guild usually kept a low profile, but they had a group of strong players. These people were there to deal with troublesome matters for the studio, such as clearing the level of troublemakers. 3 days ago, Mighty Tyrant had followed the guild to Yu Huicheng. However, he wasn't very strong, so he was assigned to take care of the newbies. However, he encountered Chuanjin's people at the Sunset Swamp. Although Wang Yu had shown that he was strong, Mighty Tyrant thought that it would be easy to take down a Grandmaster of Combat with just a dozen people. He thought that killing Wang Yu would be a good way to prove his strength. Who knew that after a few rounds, not only would he be sent back to his hometown, but the others would also be wiped out. That Grandmaster of Combat is too shameless. He actually worked together with the boss to set us up, a mage said, rather unconvinced. A mage who had been swallowed by a venomous arrow frog emperor echoed. That's right, that's right. I didn't even know what happened before I was eaten by that thing. Damn it, this bitch. The other mages who had been eaten cursed one after another. At this time, a mage said, that guy's attack power is so high, he killed me with a normal attack. Hearing this, the others were all speechless. Xiongba also fell in a deep thought. Imperious Tyrant was killed by Wang Yu's whirlwind kick. A Grandmaster of Combat could kill a shield warrior with a whirlwind kick. How high did his attack have to be? Did he even need to coordinate with the boss to kill a shield warrior? Could it be? Damn, did you guys drop any equipment? Mighty Tyrant was shocked. Damn, I dropped my staff. One of the mages who was swallowed by the poison arrow frog emperor cried. In Rebirth, in order to prevent malicious equipment drops, the drop rate of equipment was not very high when players piked each other. However, when a player had PK points and was killed by a monster, they would definitely drop an equipment. The guy who had a staff dropped was the unlucky guy who had PK points. Damn it, he really is a bitch. Within the Sunset Swamp, Wang Yu casually patted and a white gas rolled up a staff on the ground. Wang Yu took a look at its attributes and casually threw it to Manjusaka. Hey, it really dropped equipment. Wang Yu said in surprise. Manjusaka also had a face of surprise. You're so good at piking and you don't even know this? It's because I'm good at piking that I don't know. Wang Yu said confidently. TSK, Deathfire staff, silver equipment. These guys are really rich. I don't have any money to give you right now. We'll talk about it when we have money. Manjusaka could not wait to equip the staff. Wang Yu said, it's fine, you're quite pleasing to the eye, so I won't ask for interest from you. Manjusaka ignored the second half of Wang Yu's sentence and pointed at the venomous Dart Frog Emperor. What about this boss? The venomous Dart Frog Emperor seemed to be a bit retarded. It jumped around and didn't attack anyone. Even so, Manjusaka did not dare to look down on it. This guy had swallowed a few mages in front of everyone. Everyone there was a mage. It was inevitable that they would feel hurt. Of course we kill it, Wang Yu said and jumped, about to use collapsing fist and smash it. Unexpectedly, just as Wang Yu jumped, the venomous Dart Frog Emperor's tongue stretched out and rolled over. Wang Yu was shocked. He turned his body in midair and switched his weapon to the Universe Blade. He slashed at the venomous Dart Frog Emperor's tongue. The venomous Dart Frog Emperor's tongue retracted and the Universe Blade was rolled away, leaving only a scabbard in Wang Yu's hand. Wang Yu did not expect the venomous Dart Frog Emperor to have such a move. After one round, he was in a difficult position. Fortunately, the scabbard was in his hand. A few seconds after the Universe Blade was disarmed, it reappeared in Wang Yu's hand. The venomous dart frog emperor stood there stupidly and continued to jump around. Old cow, this guy's a frog. I know. Wang Yu sweated. He was not blind. How could he not recognize this thing's original form? Manjusaka reminded him. Then can you not jump around in front of it? Wang Yu was startled. He suddenly thought of the archers just now. When they were standing in place, the venomous dart frog emperor did not even look at them. When they were about to run, they were caught up and licked to death. Could it be that this thing was only interested in things that could move? Thinking of this, Wang Yu lifted his leg and took a step forward. As expected, the venomous dart frog emperor turned around and aimed its mouth at Wang Yu. Wang Yu had just taken his second step when a poisonous arrow flew over. Wang Yu swung his blade to cut down the poisonous arrow and took another step forward. The venomous dart frog emperor opened its mouth and its tongue flew out. Damn, this beast! Wang Yu cursed in his heart. His body flashed, and he flashed under the venomous dart frog emperor's head. At the same time, the universe blade in his hand turned into a long blade. He raised the blade with both hands and stabbed at the venomous dart frog emperor's chin. Puff! Gwa! Wang Yu stabbed the venomous dart frog emperor's chin. The venomous dart frog emperor cried out, and a damage of 3,542 appeared above its head. Seeing that this move was effective, Wang Yu was delighted. Just as he was about to continue stabbing, the venomous dart frog emperor's body crouched down and instantly disappeared into the swamp. The next moment, Wang Yu felt the ground under his feet suddenly sink, and he lost his balance. Right at this moment, the venomous dart frog emperor appeared directly below Wang Yu with its mouth wide open. Damn! Seeing the venomous dart frog emperor below him, Wang Yu was immediately drenched in sweat. Chapter 406. Just as Wang Yu was unable to dodge, the venomous arrow frog emperor's tongue shot out again. Seeing this, Wang Yu changed the weapon in his hand into a long rod and thrust it forward vertically, just in time to be entangled by the venomous arrow frog emperor's tongue. Wang Yu's rod was over 2 meters long, and the venomous dart frog emperor's mouth was only 2 meters wide. The venomous dart frog emperor's tongue curled around the rod and pulled back. The rod and Wang Yu were stuck in the venomous dart frog emperor's mouth. Wang Yu took advantage of the fact that the venomous dart frog emperor was stuck and switched the rod back to glove. He stepped on the venomous dart frog emperor's jaw and jumped back, jumping out of the venomous dart frog emperor's mouth. By the time the venomous dart frog emperor reacted, Wang Yu was standing under its head again. Wang Yu did not dare to move, because if he did, the venomous dart frog would dive back into the swamp. Wang Yu was lucky to escape from the venomous dart frog emperor's mouth. He could not guarantee that the venomous dart frog emperor would use its tongue to flick him every time. Help! Wang Yu turned around and yelled at Manjusaka. Ow! Manjusaka panicked. It would be easier if it was a venomous dart frog, as the freeze effect could kill them easily. However, the venomous dart frog emperor had a high resistance to crowd control. The dozen mages from Wind and Cloud had only managed to freeze it for a short while. What could she do by herself? What she was eaten? Thinking of this, Red Spider Lily was stunned, and goosebumps appeared all over her body. Wang Yu said, use spells to attack the surface of the water. The surface of the water. Yes, attack the area below the venomous dart frog emperor. Wang Yu pointed at the venomous dart frog emperor. Okay. Manjusaka bit her lips and threw an icicle. It hit the venomous dart frog emperor's leg. The venomous dart frog emperor opened its mouth and flicked its tongue at Manjusaka. Wang Yu was shocked. He quickly took out a bottle of wine and threw it at the poison arrow frog emperor's tongue. The moment the poison arrow frog emperor's tongue came into contact with the wine bottle, it retracted with a schwa sound. From the fight just now, Wang Yu learned that the venomous arrow frog emperor's tongue attack was also non-directional. As long as it came into contact with an object, it would roll back. Wang Yu, who had successfully blocked the venomous dart frog emperor's attack, wiped his sweat and said, use ice mirror, don't use icicle. Oh! Red Spider Lily nodded in a panic and casually threw out another ice mirror. Ice mirror was a control skill for ice mages. It did not deal any damage, but it could slow the target in an area. When used on water, it could cause an area of effect freeze. When the ice mirror came into contact with the water surface, a layer of ice immediately formed under the poison arrow frog emperor's body. Wang Yu chuckled and raised his knife to stab again. If the water's surface wasn't frozen, although Wang Yu was in the venomous arrow frog emperor's blind spot, the venomous arrow frog emperor would definitely dive down and pounce on him to devour him. However, the water's surface was frozen, and the venomous arrow frog emperor couldn't dive down again. No matter how Wang Yu stabbed below it, the venomous arrow frog emperor could only grin, but there was nothing it could do. Bosses in system mode were just that stubborn. Red Spider Lily saw that the venomous arrow frog emperor had become a fixed target because of her freezing of the water surface. Like a child who had found a new toy, once the freezing effect ended, she immediately threw the ice mirror over. The poor venomous arrow frog emperor was left on the water's surface by Red Spider Lily. Wang Yu took advantage of this opportunity to punch, kick, chop, and chop. The poison arrow frog emperor, the emperor of this generation, was beaten into a ball of white light. The drop rate of a boss that came from a barren land was pitifully low. In addition, Wang Yu's method of blocking the boss was really shameless, and the system was even more shameless. A level 35 gold boss only gave one piece of equipment. Luckily, this venomous arrow frog emperor was the first kill, and the equipment it dropped wasn't low grade. It was just that it looked a little ugly. A green, half-rotten heart that also gave off a faint stench. The system designer's taste was really out of this world. Heart of the Frog Emperor attack. 35-50 mana. 203-5-9 strength 12 vitality Swamp King. Passive skill. Speed reduction in swamps is reduced by 30. Diving mastery. Passive skill. Movement speed reduction in water is reduced by 30. Diving time is increased by 600 seconds. Swamp walk. Active skill. Possesses the strength of the Frog Emperor. Can dive into the swamp for 30 seconds. Cooldown, 60 seconds. Cost, 200. Required class. General required level. 30 item introduction. Venomous arrow frog emperor's heart. It has a special effect. The main attributes of this necklace were only a little higher than the level 10 Wolf King's heart that Wang Yu was wearing. To be honest, the two skills, Swamp King and Swamp Walk, were quite useless. One reduced movement speed, and the other was similar to an Earth Escape skill. It was just that the terrain was limited to swamps. After all, melee classes wouldn't go into swamps for no reason. However, Wang Yu quite liked the effect of diving mastery. When players were underwater, it was the same as when they entered the swamp. Their movement speed would be reduced by 60. After wearing this necklace, not only did the movement speed reduction halve, but the diving time was also increased by 600 seconds. A player's fixed diving time was 120 seconds. After wearing this necklace, it actually increased by 5 times. In the game, many treasure chests and rare ores were underwater. This thing was really a treasure hunting tool. Seeing the attributes of the necklace, Wang Yu was delighted. He took off the Wolf King's blessing and quickly equipped the heart of the Frog Emperor. Red Spider Lily's face darkened. Hey, what did it drop? Wang Yu was really unkind. She had helped him for so long, and he had stolen the necklace. Wang Yu showed the necklace and said, "This. So disgusting." Girls always looked at the appearance of equipment before looking at the attributes. Red Spider Lily only took a look at the heart of the Frog Emperor and did not even look at the attributes before showing a look of disgust. "Yeah, so I'll take it. You don't have to pay for the staff just now," Wang Yu said shamelessly. Red Spider Lily said unhappily, "You didn't even pull me into the party just now. Do you know that?" Wang Yu was also stunned. He was so focused on fighting the boss that he forgot to form a party. No wonder his experience increased so much. It turned out that he had taken the boss's EXP for himself. "I'm really sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. The necklace in your hand looks pretty good. Just give it to me." Wang Yu looked at the Wolf King's blessing in his hand and thought to himself that this girl had good taste. Although this equipment was a bit outdated, it was still a gold-grade equipment. The value of gold-grade equipment was not just because of its attributes. it was also a symbol of strength. It would definitely be very cool if he brought it out. Wang Yu hesitated for a moment and said, I can give it to you, but you still have to pay for the staff. F***ck, you miser. Give it to me. Red Spider Lily looked at Wang Yu with disdain and took the Wolf King's blessing. P.S. Thanks to fireworks of a different color, soothing skin, mad bloodlust for tips. Chapter 407. Red Spider Lily had a warm personality and was a typical type of person who would get to know people easily. Wang Yu had saved her at the beginning, and the two of them had killed the boss, so they quickly became familiar with each other. She actively invited Wang Yu to train with her. Originally, Wang Yu did not want to train in this lousy swamp, even if the girl invited him. However, since he had just obtained the Frog Emperor's heart, Wang Yu wanted to test out his new skills. When they were fighting the boss, Red Spider Lily found out that Ice Mirror could freeze the swamp. As a result, the two of them formed a party. Red Spider Lily froze the ground, and Wang Yu walked on it as if it was flat ground. His leveling efficiency increased by a lot. There is a saying that when men and women work together, work was not tiring. As Wang Yu and Red Spider Lily were happily farming, to place one's pride's cursing voice suddenly came from the guild channel. F***ck, I was killed. Everyone. What happened? Everyone asked after receiving the message. To place one's pride said, I came to Thorn City to buy something, but a group of people suddenly appeared and surrounded me. Why did you come to Thorn City to buy something? Everyone was puzzled. The seller said he wanted to trade in person. It turned out that Pride's Thorn of Despair had already collected 7 fragments. However, no matter what he did, he was unable to collect the 8th fragment. This was very normal. After all, epic weapons were unique. Even a low-ranked weapon could not be easily collected. To place one's pride posted a purchase post on the forums. This morning, someone suddenly contacted to place one's pride, saying that he had a shard of the Thorn of Despair and sent a picture. The price was also very reasonable, but there was a condition. It had to be done in person. To place one's pride was overjoyed when he finally found the last shard. He did not think too much and went to Thorn City. To place one's pride had just arrived at the agreed location when a group of people suddenly appeared and surrounded to place one's pride. The group seemed to have come prepared, and they were not weak. To place one's pride was caught off guard and was killed after a few struggles. Where are you now? Wuji asked. At the Thorn City dojo. They're blocking the entrance. I can't get out. Otherwise, I wouldn't have called you guys. To place one's pride said. Do you know who killed you? Wuji was afraid that a place one's pride had the first move. If not, I wouldn't even know who his opponent was. The leader of the group was called Ju Wu Shun, and Gao cursed. Mother ***, you led a sneak attack on me. Otherwise, I would have been able to escape. Fortunately, you didn't attack first, Wuji replied before asking in the channel, Ju Wushin, do you know Dao Shui? Wuji said, never heard. Wushin said, Wang Yu said, you're from Wind and Cloud Guild. They had just killed someone called Xiongba, and now there was this Ju Wushin. As a martial arts family, Wind and Cloud wasn't a martial arts family. But in Old Wang's words, this book was ***t. If martial arts were so strong, would they have fallen to such a state? After hearing Wang Yu's words, famous sword Dao Shui suddenly thought of such a stupid guild. Wind and Cloud seems to be quite low profile. How do they offend us? Low profile doesn't mean they don't have strength. Chick, how many people do they have? Wuji asked. To place one's pride said, there were 15 of them when they attacked me. I don't know. Only 15? Old cow alone is enough. Mingdu said. Wuji thought about it and said, it's not that simple. To place one's pride is definitely not their target. There might be an ambush. There's an ambush. Mingdo was stunned for a moment. He gloated and said, little chick, you stay there. We won't die with you. To place one's pride was furious. F***k, oldly, just you wait. Seeing that the two were about to start a fight, Wuji quickly stopped them. I'll kick you two out if you keep this up. Everyone, let's go together. I want to see what this Wind and Cloud Guild is up to. Yup, okay. Everyone replied. To place one's pride might be arrogant, but they were all adults. They loved this little brother of theirs. Mingdu said, "All right, I treat Chick like my own. I don't want him to embarrass me. Oldly, I'm your boss. Go ahead. I have some matters to attend to, so I'll be heading back first." Wang Yu turned off the guild channel and said to Red Spider Lily, "What are you going to do? I'm about to level up." Seeing that Wang Yu was about to leave, Red Spider Lily was rather reluctant to part with her. Such an awesome monster farming machine was hard to find. Wang Yu did not hide it and said, "To Thorn City." Red Spider Lily said excitedly, "Bramble City? I'll go with you. My brother opened a grocery store in Bramble City." This, Wang Yu was troubled. "It's quite dangerous." Red Spider Lily said with disdain, "Don't look down on me. I might even be able to help you. I have companions. They're not good people." Wang Yu threatened. Red Spider Lily said, "You and I aren't afraid. Why will we be afraid of others?" F***CK. Wang Yu, who was treated as a bad guy, cursed. "Let me ask. I have a friend who wants to go with me. Do you want to bring him?" Wang Yu opened the guild channel and asked. Wuji said, "How's his strength?" "Very weak." Wang Yu looked at Red Spider Lily and replied. The people that Wang Yu interacted with on a daily basis were all super experts like the Quanjin sect. For him to use the word noob to describe Manjusaka was already an understatement. Chun Xiang said, "Brother Nyo, I have to say this. When I go to play, you're bringing a burden." "A woman." Wang Yu interrupted before Chun Xiang could finish his sentence. "We should help each other. She can learn from me if she's not skilled. I like to be a teacher. I'll teach her step by step." Chun Xiang said righteously. Wuji also said, "That's right. We never discriminate against weak players. Bring her." "Damn, I knew it." Wang Yu sighed helplessly and said to Red Spider Lily, "Let's go." Other than Wang Yu, who was forced to do a quest, the other members of Chuanjin were all in the city. Soon, the members of Chuanjin were all gathered. Seeing Red Spider Lily, the animals all sighed in the guild channel. "She's pretty. Where did you get her?" "I picked her up on the road." Wang Yu said in a bad mood. "Teach us how to pick her up." "Nyo go Uncle Nyo, Uncle Nyo," Mingdu said excitedly. The others were also envious. They could pick up a girl from a guild quest. They were so lucky. "Are you guys done? Chick is waiting for us to save him," Yang Na said with a dark face. God knew if she really cared about to place one's pride. To place one's pride seemed to be quite free. After seeing the conversation in the guild channel, he quickly said, "Sister Shui, I'm not in a hurry. Let Uncle Nyo speak." Yang Na. Wuji was very sensible in this situation. He cleared his throat and said, "All right, useless. Let's get down to business. We'll talk about this next time." At the same time, he privately messaged Wang Yu. "Remember to introduce me to girls in the future." Chapter 408. Thorn City, Dojo. A group of people stood outside the entrance, staring at the crowd going in and out of the dojo. One of the knights was the most eye-catching. He wielded a golden spear and wore golden armor. Although he did not activate his equipment special effects, it was obvious that he was a high-grade item. The dojo was a gathering place for players. When the players saw the knight, they could not help but turn to look at him. A player wearing 2 pieces of gold equipment was a privilege that only the first-rate battle teams of large guilds had. This kind of expert was, at the very least, a superstar player. Everyone looked at the knight's face, trying to understand whether or not he was a superstar player they liked. This flashy fellow was none other than Zhu Wuxian, one of Wind and Cloud's 10 great experts. He was the one who had led a group to kill to place one's pride. He was currently blocking the entrance to the dojo. Zhu Wuxian was a thin-skinned person. He felt quite uncomfortable being stared at by the crowd. Anger was evident on his face. "Why aren't the kids' helpers here yet?" Zhu Wuxian asked with a hostile expression. "Don't tell me they're too afraid to come?" A warrior beside Zhu Wuxian muttered. These people have been blocking the dojo for the entire morning. Clearly, they were growing impatient. "Art, is that kid online?" Zhu Wuxian asked the assassin beside him. This assassin was the one who had contacted to place one's pride. The two had added each other as friends, so he could see to place one's pride's movements at any time. Glancing at his friend's list, Zhu Wuxian said, "He's online." "Oof. As long as he's online, it means he's waiting for someone. Let's keep waiting," Zhu Wuxian said. "Speaking of which, boss, If that kid's helpers come, can we beat them? Zhu Wuxian asked with lingering fear. We had so many people surround that kid, but he still killed 2 of our brothers. He knew that Wind and Cloud's party was top-notch in terms of both equipment and skill. It was only natural that Heartless Heart would feel fearful when he saw that Parting Pride had managed to kill 2 of them despite having more than a dozen people ambushing them. Zhu Wuxian said gravely, "It's just 10 people. We have so many people lying in ambush. Do you think we won't be able to kill them?" That's true. Zhu Xian thought about it. Aside from his own team, there were also over 100 experts lying in ambush nearby. This made him feel much more at ease. Since Thorn City and Yu Huicheng were neighboring cities, it would only take a blink of an eye for them to travel through the teleportation array. Do you want to go to my brother's restaurant first? Red Spider Lily soon became familiar with the people of Chuanjin and was inviting them to be her guests. Wang Yu secretly said, "Miss, you are inviting the wolf into the house. Do you know that?" Although Chuanjin and the others were usually a little frivolous, they still put the overall situation first. To place one's pride, when he heard that everyone had been invited by a lady, he cried and shouted in the channel that he wanted to share in the good fortune together. Naturally, no one would abandon him. Maybe another day. Business is more important, Wuji said. Wang Yu pulled on Red Spider Lily and said, "You go back first. We're going to PK with someone. We don't have time for you." "Okay, then you guys be careful." Along the way, Red Spider Lily also learned what Xuanjin was doing in Thorn City. No matter how much this guy liked to join in the fun, he wouldn't get involved in everything. Hearing what Wang Yu said, he definitely wouldn't pester them to go with them. "Got it. Let's train together another day." Wuji and the others all waved at Red Spider Lily. Red Spider Lily smiled and said, "Okay." After saying that, Red Spider Lily turned around and left. Just when the people of Chuanjin were about to go to the martial arts club, Red Spider Lily suddenly turned around and came back. "Sister, do you miss me?" Mingdu asked slyly. Red Spider Lily was stunned for a moment and said, "I want to tell you that my brother's restaurant is at 24 4th Street, not far from here." Oh, got it. Everyone responded carelessly. It was just a joke, but this girl took it seriously. Who would really go to someone's restaurant for no reason? Other than the scenery, the main cities of District 7 were actually similar. The layout of Thorn City was exactly the same as that of Yu Huicheng. When everyone arrived at the martial arts club on Central Street, they just happened to see Zhu Wuxian and the others blocking the entrance. After seeing Zhu Wuxian's appearance, the people of Chuanjin were also shocked by his appearance. Of course, gold equipment was not rare to the people of Chuanjin. What was rare was Zhu Wuxian's armor and spear. He looked like a gold saint, as expected of a group of people who were addicted to manga. Little Chick was the person who led the group to kill you wearing golden armor and was very flashy. Wuji asked in the guild channel. Yes, it's that piece of trash. GAO's resentment towards Zhu Wuxian was quite deep. GAO had originally wanted to escape by jumping off the roof of a building and relying on his high jumping ability as a grandmaster of combat. However, he had been stabbed down by Zhu Wuxian's spear and even stabbed from the back. They only have one team. Let's go and kill them, Mingdu suggested. Wuji shook his head. No, don't be rash. They definitely have more people. Bao San was confused. Are there more people? Wuji pointed at Zhu Wuxian and the others and said, "There must be an ambush. Have you seen any guild that dares to block the resurrection point with only a dozen people?" That's true. The people of Chuanjin had a lot of experience in being blocked. They immediately reacted to Wuji's words. The resurrection point was not a small place. Although there's only one door, it was extremely wide. A dozen people could at most form a line of defense. Previously, when Gokuraku Jodo blocked them, they had sent 40 to 50 people to the resurrection point. How could Wind Cloud dare to block the resurrection point with a dozen people? What do we do now? Ignore little Chick? Wuji waved his hand. Old cow, you go first. Dao Xue, an old fish, go and see how many people there are. The people of the Quanjun sect didn't know how strong Wang Yu was, but they knew that as long as Wang Yu wanted to leave, no matter how many people there were, They wouldn't be able to catch him in this terrain with walls on both sides. Mingjian Daoxue and Baiming Yoyu were assassins and could go invisible. They did not need to worry. After the three left, Mingdu pointed at a fork in the road. Let's stand there. Yin Lao Air and Yang Na were confused. We can see quite clearly from here. Why go there? Mingdo smiled and said, you don't understand. No matter what the situation is, the place with the most convenient transportation is the easiest place to escape. Yin Lao Air looked up at the intersection. As expected, there were not only intersections, there were also all kinds of corners. It was definitely convenient to run. Yin Lao Air was completely convinced. How many times did he have to be hunted down to realize this? Mingdu said proudly, you're wrong. This is the accumulation of my years of work experience. It was not trained by being chased. Chapter 409. By the time Mingdu and the others hid at the intersection, Wang Yu had already arrived at the entrance of the martial arts hall. The martial arts hall was not only a resurrection point for grandmasters of combat, but also a place for grandmasters of combat to learn skills and receive quests. Many grandmasters of combat came and went here, and Wang Yu's arrival did not attract the attention of Zhu Wuxin and the others. At this time, they had not confirmed whether there was an ambush, so Wang Yu did not let to place one's pride out. At this time, Ming Jian Daoxue and Baiming Yu sent a message. There is indeed an ambush here, but there are not many people, only 20, and they seem to be quite strong. Not many people? Wu Ji's heart tightened, and a puzzled expression appeared on his face. With just these people, they wanted to set up an ambush? Did the other side really only have a grudge against to place one's pride? Only 20 people? Wang Yu smiled and said, come out, chick. I'll wait for you at the entrance. To be honest, Wang Yu did not feel any pressure when there were more than 20 people. To place one's pride saw Wang Yu's message and sneaked out of the martial arts hall. Boss, that kid is out. Zhu Xian pointed to place one's pride and said, he's finally out. When Zhu Wuxin and the others at the entrance saw to place one's pride, they all had tears in their eyes. From morning until now, these guys have been blocking the entrance, anxiously waiting for to place one's pride to come out, especially Zhu Wuxin, who was being watched by passers-by. He had already cursed to place one's pride 180 times in his heart. Now that he saw to place one's pride coming out, how could he not be excited? To place one's pride saw Zhu Wuxin and waved in greeting. Grandson, sorry to keep you waiting. Seeing how arrogant to place one's pride was, Zhu Wuxin was infuriated. He wanted nothing more than to rush over and stab 100 holes into to place one's pride. However, he cannot. To place one's pride would have to turn around and return to the spawn point. If that happened, wouldn't he have wasted his entire morning waiting? Anyway, this street was full of ambushes. To place one's pride, he was not afraid that place one's pride would run away. To place one's pride martial arts club entrance was a little further away. Sure enough, when a place one's pride saw Zhu Wuxin's expression, he smiled and pointed at the martial arts hall, saying, come on, I'll go back after you come. To place one's pride, he turned around and greeted Wang Yu. Uncle Nyo. Wang Yu nodded and didn't say anything. He squinted at the enemies around him. Zhu Wuxin coldly scolded to place one's pride and ordered in the channel, Zhu Ying, Zhu Zong, the two of you sneak over and block the door. Don't let him go back. At this moment, Zhu Xian suddenly noticed that something was wrong. Boss, his helper doesn't seem to be here. Zhu Wuxin said, since this kid dares to come out, even if his helper isn't here, they're not far from here. Don't be careless. Who's that? Zhu Wuxin immediately noticed Wang Yu, who to place one's pride had just greeted. I don't know. He was just standing outside the door. After Zhu Wuxin's reminder, the others also noticed Wang Yu. Zhu Xian said, could he be that kid's helper? Just one person? Zhu Wuxin was stunned and said in disbelief, does that kid think he can beat us with one more helper? What an arrogant brat. Damn, kids these days are too arrogant. When everyone heard Zhu Wuxin's explanation, they all started cursing. These people were all top-notch experts. Originally, having more than a dozen people surrounding a single person was already very embarrassing. They had never expected that this brat would be so arrogant as to think that he could get a random helper to wipe out their entire team. This was blatantly looking down on them. However, what was even more arrogant was yet to come. To place one's pride walked over to Wang Yu's side. Wang Yu acted as if there was no one else around and said, "Let's go." After that, he led to place one's pride and swaggered past Zhu Wuxin's team. Fuck. Zhu Wuxin's mind was in a mess. Could it be that all pugilists nowadays were this arrogant? However, Zhu Wuxin quickly recovered. Fuck. Tank, block the entrance. Everyone else, don't let them escape. After Zhu Wuxin gave his command, the 20 or so players lying in ambush nearby the martial arts center moved to surround Zhu Wuxin and his team. Not only did they block the entrance of the martial arts center, but they also surrounded Wang Yu and Gao. Zhu Wuxin pointed at Wang Yu and ordered, "Kill that big guy first." After saying that, Zhu Wuxin brandished his spear and took the lead to charge at Wang Yu's back. "You go first, I'll handle this." Wang Yu grabbed to place one's pride and threw him several meters into the air. To place one's pride used a collapsing fist in the air and flew to a nearby house. He then used the eaves of the house to flip himself over. At the same time, Zhu Wuxin's charge, the magician's spells, and the archer's arrows landed on Wang Yu's body. Bang! A muffled sound rang out. A white light flashed, and Wang Yu's body shattered. Zhu Wuxin's HP plummeted. Everyone was shocked. Afterimage Blast. It's a level 30 expert. There are not many level 30 experts in the entire game. They did not expect to meet one here, and a Grandmaster of Combat at that. Fear appeared on Zhu Wuxin's face. Just now, Wang Yu's afterimage explosion had shaved away close to 1/5 of his HP. Although Zhu Wuxin had never seen a level 30 Grandmaster combat before, he knew about the skill, afterimage explosion. As an escape skill, afterimage blast damage was not high, but it was able to take away 1/5 of a knight's HP. It was clear that this Grandmaster of Combat's damage was ridiculously high. In his panic, Zhu Wuxin ordered, "Surround him, don't let him escape." After using afterimage punch, the user would become invisible for 3 seconds. Although it was not as overpowered as stealth, it was enough for a Grandmaster of Combat to escape. Everyone did not move after receiving the order. Instead, they pointed above Zhu Wuxin and said, "Boss, he's above you." "Oomph, good." Zhu Wuxin did not even raise his head when he heard this. He simply raised his spear above his head. When ordinary players heard that their opponent was above them, they would subconsciously look up. However, as a veteran expert, Zhu Wuxin wouldn't make such a low-level mistake. Immediately, he launched an attack at Wang Yu, who was hovering in the air. Following that, the spear in Zhu Wuxin's hand sank. Thinking that his spear had stabbed Wang Yu, he raised his head to look up. Unexpectedly, the moment he raised his head, he saw Wang Yu grabbing the spear with both hands and stomping down on his face. Eagle Stamp. 3125 Wang Yu's legs had bonus damage. Eagle Stamp instantly reduced Zhu Wuxin's HP to almost 0. Just as Wang Yu was about to stomp his foot a second time, the second wave of attacks arrived. Wind and Cloud had a total of 36 players surrounding Wang Yu. Aside from Zhu Wuxin, Wang Yu had 3 shield bearers, 3 weapon bearers for thieves, 10 mages, 10 archers, 3 priests, and 2 warlocks. Offense, defense, and healer. They were well equipped. Outside the 3 shield bearers blocking the entrance, the 3 weapon bearers lined up in a row and charged at Wang Yu. At the same time, the 4 thieves went into stealth. Although the simultaneous attacks of 20 range classes could not be described as overwhelming, they were densely packed. Chapter 410. Reeks. It was the Warlock's distortion barrier. When Wang Yu saw the 2 circles on the ground, his pupils shrank. In Rebirth, there were not many players of the Dark Warlock class. Their attacks were weak, and they wore cloth armor. They could not run fast or jump high. They basically had no advantages. They had an AoE crowd control skill and a very long prerequisites. The only advantage they had was that they could cast poison and reduce movement speed. However, with the freezing effect of ice magic, the Warlock class did not stand out. As a result, the Warlock class was even weaker than Pugilists in the game. The main reason why they received less criticism was that they did not like the class at all. Pugilists, on the other hand, had a lot of people who liked them at the beginning. However, after entering the game, there were also a lot of people who cursed them out of disappointment. As a result, Warlocks were rarely seen in ordinary teams or small groups. As a Grandmaster of Combat with a body as light as a swallow and quick reflexes, Wang Yu wasn't afraid of most of the skills in Rebirth. Only the Dark Warlock's Distortion Boundary was Wang Yu's most troublesome skill. If it was an ice magic skill like Icicle or Icicle, the skill could be shot down or dodged. Even if one was slowed by the skill, one could still rely on rolling to avoid the attack. However, Distortion Barrier was different. First, this skill could not be shot down. Second, this skill had a very large AoE. If one wanted to dodge it, they would have to run out of the skill's range before it was activated. Finally, this skill had a freeze effect. In other words, as long as one was hit by it, they would be frozen in place. For a class that relied on dodging for a living, this skill was the bane of a class. When Wang Yu had come out, Empty God's team had only consisted of other classes. Wang Yu had not expected that Empty God's team had hidden 2 Warlocks. I was too careless. Seeing that the darkness barrier was about to form, Wang Yu sighed inwardly. Just as he was about to use Night Jump to escape, he saw 2 figures appear behind the 2 Warlocks outside the circle. It was Mingjian Shui and Baiming Yoyu. They had noticed Wang Yu's current predicament, so they ran behind the 2 Warlocks and used Gouge, Backstab, and Slit Throat. The combo turned the 2 Warlocks into white light. After the spellcaster died, the skill would also vanish into thin air. Yu won. Seeing the 2 Warlocks die, Wang Yu smiled and immediately calmed down. Eagle Stamp landed on the ground a second time. Seeing Wang Yu land on the ground, Zhu Wuxian immediately raised his spear and stabbed forward. Wang Yu smiled faintly, his hands suddenly grabbing onto Zhu Wuxian's arms before he fell backwards. At the same time, he kicked Zhu Wuxian's crotch. Zhu Wuxian cried out in pain as he was thrown towards the 3 incoming warriors. The 3 warriors, who were still in the midst of moving, were smashed into a ball. Zhu Wuxian's head was also smashed into a burst of white light. Wang Yu's move was called Ground Tumble. It was a kind of throwing technique. The strength of the legs was not used to attack, but to support the strength of the arms. It couldn't be helped. The Knight class had the highest attack priority out of all the classes. Now that his level was higher, his advantage was even more obvious. If Wang Yu didn't use both his hands and feet, he wouldn't be able to throw the clumsy knight away. Because he had rolled backwards when throwing Zhu Wuxian, Wang Yu just happened to dodge the attacks of the archers and mages. Wang Yu immediately followed up with a quick recover and went into a crouch. He switched his weapon to a staff and swung it horizontally across the ground. 4 thieves were also knocked out of sight. These 4 thieves were hit in the ankles by Wang Yu. Their feet missed their footing and they all fell to the ground. Wang Yu turned around, grabbed the head of one of the thieves, and flung him forward, breaking through the mage's formation. He then leaped into the air and used Collapsing Fist to escape the encirclement. Wang Yu's movements were as smooth as flowing water. He didn't pause in the slightest. Zhu Wuxian was instantly killed. 3 warriors and 4 thieves collapsed to the ground. This string of attacks had never been heard of before. The players from Wind and Cloud were dumbfounded. What the hell is that skill? It's a rare skill, I think. Amazing. Amazing my ass. Hurry up and chase him. Don't let him get away. Someone shouted, and everyone hurriedly chased after Wang Yu. The archers were fast, so it was one thing to chase after them, but there was no point in the mages joining in. By the time Wind and Cloud's players reached the intersection, only 1 archer and the 4 unlucky thieves were still behind Wang Yu. At this moment, Wang Yu suddenly stopped and turned around. Have you heard of the story of the mantis stalking the cicada? The archers were petrified. Was this guy even a teacher? He's telling a story, even when he's about to die. But before they could react, they ran into a circle in front of Wang Yu. Boom! Twisting barrier rose up, locking the 10 archers and 4 thieves in place. Following which, Wind and Rain's members felt their feet heat up followed by a wave of numbness. When they opened their eyes again, they found themselves at the resurrection point. Good. No PK points. Mingdu poked his head out from the side after everyone was killed. Wind and Cloud's players had attacked Wang Yu first. As Wang Yu's teammate, Mingdu also had the time to defend himself. Otherwise, his 14 PK points in Thorn City would be enough to make him suffer. Where's Chick? Chun Xiang, Wu Ji, and the others walked out from Mingdu's position and asked Wang Yu. I'm here. To place one's pride was sitting cross-legged on a roof not far away and waved at everyone. Wu Ji saw that to place one's pride had escaped and said to the others, Let's go. I keep feeling that something's off. We can't stay here any longer. Okay. Everyone nodded and turned towards the teleportation point. At this moment, the rest of Wind and Cloud's players had caught up. As the revival point was very close, the archer and Zhu Wuxian who had just been killed were also among them. Seeing that Xuanzhen's players were trying to escape, Zhu Wuxian said coldly, Do you think it's that easy to escape? Wu Ji sneered at Zhu Wuxian. Who are you people? We're people you can't afford to offend. Tell me, is it this game or another game? Wu Ji asked. Xuanzhen had offended a lot of people. Wu Ji couldn't tell who Wind and Cloud's players were from just the word offend. However, Wu Ji was sure that he had never heard of Wind and Cloud's guild. Don't care which game it is. Just don't think about leaving today, Zhu Wuxian said. Xuanzhen's players laughed at Zhu Wuxian's words. Mingdu said mockingly, You small fries? I'm afraid you won't even be able to stop one of us. Wind and Cloud's players blushed when they heard that. Mingdu was right. Just now, more than 30 of them had ganged up on one person, but they hadn't been able to stop him. Many of them had even been killed. Zhu Wuxian sneered. To be honest, you guys are very strong. We can't stop you. Then scram. Mingdu waved his staff, ready to kill. We can't stop you. But have you heard of the story of the mantis stalking the cicada? Mingdu's expression tensed up. What do you mean? You know what it means. Chapter 411. Genius 1 Second Remember Net. Providing you with exciting novels to read. Hearing the voice, the people of Xuanzhen turned around to look. A gray-haired warrior holding a single-handed sword was leading a few dozen people behind the people of Xuanzhen and surrounding them. Who are you? Wu Ji asked with a frown. No wonder he felt something was off. It turned out that the Wind and Cloud Guild had also set up an ambush here. It seemed like they were professionals in ambushes. Mingdu whispered, I think you're nameless, judging from your disguise. The warrior replied with a smile. I'm the guild leader of the Wind and Cloud Guild. My name is Shifu. I heard that Xuanzhen is quite arrogant, but you're still surrounded by us like wild dogs. The Xuanzhen players were speechless. To place one's pride suddenly shouted in the channel, Damn, there's so many people. The people of the Xuanzhen sect saw the news and quickly looked around. Indeed, when Shifu appeared, many people also appeared at the 4 intersections of the intersection. At this time, the intersections were completely blocked. It was obvious that Mingdu was a professional when it came to capturing people. The Wind and Cloud Guild players were professionals in ambushes. Their foresight was not bad either. They had already set up an ambush along the escape route of the Xuanzhen players. How many people do they have? Wu Ji asked to place one's pride who was on the rooftop. To place one's pride was able to see further. He quickly replied, At least 170 to 80. There are more than 20 warlocks. To place one's pride's words shocked not only the Xuanzhen players, but also Wang Yu. From the professionalism of these people, it was not difficult to see that they were a professional assassin group. Moreover, the people of the Quanzhen sect were surrounded, so they could only face them head-on. 180 people against 10 people. Was there a need to consider the outcome? No matter how powerful the people of the Quanzhen sect were, it was impossible for them to defeat so many people. If there were only 200 combat professions, Wang Yu might be able to escape. However, the intersection was only so big, and there were over 20 warlocks on the other side. What was the concept of more than 20 warlocks? They didn't even need to aim or predict. They just needed to lay the ground flat to force Wang Yu to his death. After all, Wang Yu only knew how to leap onto eaves and walk on walls, but not fly. They came prepared. We have to find a way to escape. Where to? Yin Lao Air asked. The people of Chuanjin basically all had the ability to escape, except for Yin Lao Air and Wuji. The roof. Wuji pointed at the place one's pride. F***CK, that's a dead end. Yin Lao Air asked. But there's no one there. To place one's pride's rooftop was between two intersections. There were no enemies in front of it. Similarly, it was a dead end. If they couldn't get to the rooftop successfully, it would definitely be a disaster. Because the encirclement would shrink after they rushed over, the front line's ability to take hits and the back line's ability to control fire were the most important. With Mingdu's damage output, it was naturally not a problem to hold off the opposing front line. The key was whether Yin Lao, Air, and Wuji could withstand the instantaneous damage output of so many people. Moreover, the opposing side's control was also the biggest factor. In such a small space, the distortion boundaries crowd control was undoubtedly fatal. You just need to hold them off. Don't worry about anything else. Wuji then gave orders to the others. Same old rules. Brother Chun will cover the rear. Daoshua, Old Yu, I'll leave the 10 warlocks on the opposing side to you. Mingdu, you'll be in charge of the opposing front line. The others will be in charge of clearing up the remaining soldiers. When Shifu saw that Xuanjin and the others were silent, he thought that they had been scared silly. Hence, he pretended to be approachable and said, "Actually, I don't like to fight and kill. I've come to you this time because I want something from you. If you're willing to listen to me, I'll consider letting you go." Wuji glanced at Shifu and said coldly, "I'm not lending it to you." What a joke. Have you ever seen Xuanjin spitting out anything that entered their mouths? Furthermore, he was using such a method to force them to submit. This group of lunatics was least afraid of fighting head-on. When Shifu heard that, he said fiercely, "You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Kill them all, and then block the resurrection point." The central street was the closest place to the resurrection point. This group of people chose to block the resurrection point so that they could immediately return to support their comrades who were blocking the resurrection point. It was obvious that this group of people had been doing this for a long time. Wuji smiled. He waved his staff and a red light enveloped Yin Lao Air. Then, he gave the order in the channel, "Charge." As soon as Wuji finished speaking, Spring Xiang pointed his staff forward. 6 gigantic demons and a distorted barrier blocked Shifu and Zhu Wuxian's way. At the same time, Yin Lao Air did not say anything. He raised his giant shield and charged forward. Mingdu, Bao San, and Wang Yu hid behind Yin Lao Air. Behind them were Spring Xiang, Wuji, and Yang Na. With Yin Lao Air tanking the damage from the front and Spring Xiang tanking from the back, Xuanjin and the others soon reached the opposite wall. When the wind and cloud players saw that Xuanjin and the others were about to run, they organized their warriors into a formation. Under the cover of spells and arrows, they surrounded Xuanjin and the others and charged at them in a row. There was a scissor gap under the wall. Yin Lao Air turned around and blocked with his giant shield, protecting everyone behind him. It was as if one man could hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. The red light Wuji cast on Yin Lao Air was an invincible barrier. The enemy's attacks did not even cause a ripple on Yin Lao Air's body. Mingjian Daoshue and Bai Mingyu both had second-stage stealth. Adding on to the fact that they had been in stealth the entire time, the moment Yin Lao Air reached the corner, the two of them dealt with the warlocks and then swaggered off. With Yin Lao Air as a shield, the others were naturally very safe. Mingdu also finished casting his spells. Fire, Thunder, Heavenly Strike, and Heavenly Lightning, Earth and Blaze were thrown out at the same time. Fire and lightning intertwined, instantly reducing the wind and cloud players to critical health. Bao San took the opportunity to charge into the enemy formation. Whirlwind Slash was like a gale, stepping on Mingdu's Thunderfire to block the charging warriors. Wang Yu also rushed over at this time and used Thunderstomp. The most threatening frontline classes were directly cleared out. A few of the defeated players were shot to death by Yang Na. Go to the roof. Wuji pointed at the roof, and ordered. Spring Xiang and Mingdu flew up to the roof. Bao San had triple slash and easily jumped up as well. Wu Ji, Yin Lao Air, and Yang Na were in a difficult position. Mingdu's position switch skill could only be used once. Yin Lao Air's invincibility was about to end. The three of them definitely wouldn't make it in time. At this time, Wang Yu also retreated. "Why aren't you going up?" Wang Yu asked. Mingdu said awkwardly, "There are too many people. I can only switch skills once." "It's a piece of cake." Bao San caught it. Wang Yu smiled and grabbed Wu Ji's collar with one hand. With a ferocious tiger strike, she threw Wu Ji over 3 meters high. Bao San, who was lying on the eaves, reached out and lifted Wu Ji up. Wang Yu jumped onto the roof and used cloud-grasping fist to grab Yang Na and pull her up. At the same time, Mingdu replaced the roof with Yin Lao airs and teleported up. "You can do that." Chapter 412. Genius 1 Second Remember Net. Providing you with exciting novels to read. Ever since they witnessed Wang Yu's ability to leap onto roofs and vault over walls, the roof had always been the best weapon for Qiuanjin's men to escape. However, most players had their feet firmly planted on the ground. Who would have thought that someone could walk on the roof? Central Street was the busiest street in every main city. Even the shortest house was 4 meters tall. 4 meters might not sound high, but even the professional fighter who could jump the highest in the game could only jump about 1 meter. In the game, a single step could decide the outcome of a battle, let alone a roof. There were a lot of experts in Wind and Cloud Guild, and some of them knew flight and featherfall. However, when faced with a group of fierce people who dared to charge at them head-on, only a few of them would be killed if they flew up to the roof. It was even more ridiculous to ask a Grandmaster of Combat to throw someone up. Wang Yu didn't just throw people around casually. Not to mention the fact that under the effect of Ferocious Tiger Strike, he had to change the direction of his strength. Even so, he still needed Bao San's help. Putting that aside, even if Wind and Cloud's members could really be thrown up, they would inevitably be smacked down by the people on the rooftop. With their moral integrity, it wasn't impossible for them to do such a thing. To place one's pride, when Wang Yu's group was charging at them, had thrown down tiles as cover. Shield warriors weren't afraid of arrows or magic when they raised their shield. The only thing they were afraid of was a melee class like Knight Warriors, who could forcefully interrupt their shield. Without the harassment from the melee classes, the pressure on Yin Lao Air was greatly reduced as he faced the attacks of the ranged classes. Chun Xiang commanded the demons to line up on the eaves and take over from Yin Lao Air to block the attacks from below. Quan Zhen turned around and ran to the other side of the house. Shi suddenly saw that the Qiuanjin people had disappeared and shouted, "Chase them! Don't let them escape!" The members of Wind and Cloud Guild heard the order and chased after the house. No matter what, running around the pile was not as fast as running on the ground. Soon, Qiuanjin's group had reached the next street. "Let's go down." Wu Ji stopped the group who were about to continue running towards the teleportation point. Everyone was puzzled. We're not going to the teleportation point to return to Yu Huicheng?" Yu Huicheng was Qiuanjin's base, and he had the help of Blood Alliance. Yu Huicheng definitely wouldn't dare to be so arrogant with Wind and Cloud Guild around. "There's an ambush at the teleportation point." Suddenly, Famous Sword, Dao Xue, sent a message over. Mingdu exclaimed, "What do they mean by this? Are they going to take turns on us?" Surrounding the resurrection point and teleportation point was the most basic way to kill a target. Wu Ji shook his head. "No, these people's strength is not bad, but they're definitely not experts. Moreover, they don't have many people, so it's obviously impossible for them to kill us." Thorn City had 4 teleportation points and 7 resurrection points. If not for a major guild like Pure Land of Bliss, they wouldn't have enough manpower to surround all 11 locations. On the other hand, they would be vulnerable to enemy attacks. That's right, there's no one at the resurrection point. Another assassin, Baiming Yoyu, said in the channel. Bao San was also puzzled. There's no one at the resurrection point. What are they trying to do? I'm not sure either. These people were of unknown origins and they had never interacted with each other before. Wuji also didn't know why they were doing this. Then we'll just stay on the roof. They can't come up. To place one's pride said proudly. This guy often went up to the roof and was very proud of his skills. Wuji looked at the place one's pride plainly and said, "Do you know the biggest difference between humans and animals?" "What difference?" To place one's pride was slightly startled. "Humans know how to use tools." F***CKU. To place one's pride was furious. Wuji was right. There were even aircrafts in the game's background. There would definitely be ladders to the roof as well. Furthermore, there was no one guarding the low house. It wouldn't take long for the Guild of Wind and Cloud to find a way to get to the roof. Therefore, the roof was only convenient for escaping, but it wasn't absolutely safe. Yang Na said, "Then where are we going to stay at the resurrection point?" Thorn City was an unfamiliar place, and there were no guild offices to stay in. To Chuanjin, the safest places were the resurrection points and teleportation points. Chun Xiang rubbed his chin and said, "Aren't we walking right into a trap if we go back now?" We can look for Manjusaka." Mingdu smiled lecherously. Mingdu was only joking. Wuji heard him and said, "Not bad. Not a good idea. Oldly can be smart sometimes, but his intentions aren't good." That's right. Oldly is too wretched. I don't want to be associated with him." Under Wuji's lead, the other animals started to look down on Mingdu. Wang Yu was speechless. He suddenly felt that Chun Xiang and Wuji were purposely baiting Mingdu to say those words. Yang Na objected. "Are you familiar with her? It's not good to drag her into this." "That's right. I feel bad too. She still owes me money. What can I do if I don't pay her back?" Wang Yu said worriedly. To place one's pride was rarely mature and said, "You guys are thinking too much. If you really can't do it, let her join our Chuanjin. We can protect her." Gao's words were too shameless. A group of people had already been driven to desperation by others, yet he still wanted to protect them. Even a thick-skinned person like Wuji felt that the younger generation would surpass the older generation in time. In the end, to place one's pride added, "Then our Chuanjin will have another girl." Just thinking about it makes me excited. Everyone looked at him with disdain. "Kid, go play somewhere else. Even if there are 2 more girls, it won't be your turn." "Why? Damn you." To place one's pride burst into tears. Under everyone's unanimous suggestion, they basically ignored Yang Na and Wang Yu's objections and decided to look for Manjusaka. After all, Manjusaka's brother had a grocery store. He was invincible in private places. "Where's the girl again?" 24 4th Street. Mingdu showed his professionalism again. "She's on the street we came from. Let's go back." At this moment, the players from Wind and Cloud Guild had just circled to the other side of the house. Chuanjin's group had returned the way they came. The archer at the front with good eyesight almost cried when he saw Chuanjin's group turn around. Those B***cheese went back again. F***CK. What the F***CK? Manjusaka's brother's shop was not as remote as Wang Yu's grocery store. It was very close to the central street. Soon, Chuanjin's group found the place. "Old cow, you go." Although Chuanjin's group was shameless, they had never harmed their friends or even sought protection from a woman. At this moment, they were encouraging Wang Yu to look for Manjusaka in the shop. Why me? Wang Yu wasn't stupid. He didn't want to embarrass himself. Everyone said, "We've only known each other for a short while. You're the closest to her." Chapter 413. Genius 1 Second. Remember if you want to go? The internet provides you with exciting novels to read. Damn it, don't ever say that in the guild channel again. Wang Yu was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. Mu Zixian was also in Chuanjin. "If you don't want to go, we will just say it." "I saw the 2 of you holding hands," Wuji said. "What do you mean?" Wuji smiled and said, "If I say there is, then there is a witness." The others said in unison, "That's right. You guys are too evil." In terms of cunningness, Tin Wang Yu's would not be a match for Wuji. Helpless, Wang Yu could only go up alone. "Hello, what do you need?" Just as Wang Yu entered the shop, a voice came from the corner. The shop was quite deserted. The shop owner was sitting in the corner with his eyes closed. Red Spider Lily was lying on the counter, and it was unknown what she was doing. "I'm looking for someone." Just as Wang Yu said that, Red Spider Lily raised her head and shouted, "Old cow, you are here." "Old cow." The shop owner suddenly stood up and walked to Wang Yu's side. He pointed at Wang Yu and said, "Damn it, God Iron Ox, why are you here?" When Wang Yu saw the shop owner's appearance, he was slightly surprised. This guy was none other than Mario. Wang Yu did not know many people, but Mario was the one who had left a deep impression on him. This guy was quite a black-bellied person. "Aren't you Yu Huiqing's man? Why are you opening a shop in Thorn City?" Wang Yu asked curiously. Mario looked at Wang Yu bitterly and said, "What do you think?" Wang Yu scratched his head in embarrassment. The players' shops didn't make much money to begin with. Yu Huicheng had Wang Yu's family's sundry goods store and Xiaobing Studios shop, so the other players' shops didn't have a chance to make money at all. Therefore, Mario decided to move to another main city. It turned out that his business was just as bad in another main city. "Where are the others?" Red Spider Lily asked. I'm outside. Wang Yu replied, then sent a message. "Come in, it's an acquaintance." When the people outside heard that the owner was an acquaintance, they came in. Wang Yu pointed at the people of Chuanjin and introduced them one by one. "This is Wuji, the leader of Chuanjin. This is Brother Chun. Nice to meet you. My name is Mario. I've heard a lot about you guys," Mario said respectfully. As an old friend of Yu Huicheng, he was no stranger to the name of Chuanjin. Especially after interacting with Wang Yu, Mario was even more convinced of the rumors. Hearing Mario's words, the people of Chuanjin were in a good mood. "Mario? Is that Mario Ozawa?" Mingdu asked slyly. Mario wiped his sweat. "It's Mario Rolling. Speaking of which, why are you guys so free to come here to play?" The people of Chuanjin instantly blushed. This was the reason why they didn't want to come and scout. They were all famous gods, but now they were being chased like dogs. It was too shameful. "We're being chased." Wang Yu was the honest one and told Mario the gist of the situation. "They're not trying to kill you. They're trying to keep you in Thorn City." After listening to Wang Yu's story, Mario said with certainty, "You guys aren't their target." That seems to be the case. The onlookers could see more clearly than the players involved. Hearing Mario's words, the people of Chuanjin felt that he made sense. Wuji nodded. "That's right. I also feel that these guys don't want to fight us to the death. I just don't know what their intentions are. Are all of you from Chuanjin here?" Mario asked again. "There are a few girls in Yu Huicheng." "Huh. Are they keeping us in Thorn City to deal with those girls?" "Those girls are all professional players. They won't participate in this." Mario thought for a moment and said, "Did you guys offend someone or affect someone's interests?" Wuji heard this and immediately understood. It's Xiaobing's studio. No matter which guild the people of the Quanjin sect had conflicts with, it was always because of trivial matters in the game. It had nothing to do with the word benefits at all. They wouldn't even talk about the guild's sub-profession players. Only Xiaobing's workshop had a conflict of interest with the Quanjin sect. Yes, it's most likely them. Mario knew that the two families weren't happy with each other, but he didn't expect it to be this bad. "Oh no, the girls are in danger," Wuji exclaimed. The others laughed. "What are you afraid of? They're in the guild encampment." As soon as they finished speaking, the people of Chuanjin suddenly received a system notification. Wind and Cloud Guild has launched an encampment battle against Chuanjin. All players of Chuanjin, please return to the encampment in 10 minutes to defend. The people of Chuanjin were dumbfounded when they received the system notification. F***CK. This bunch of trash. The encampment battle wasn't as simple as now. The encampment battle was the most important battle in the game, and the setting was extremely strict. The Challenge Guild had to fight. If there were no players defending within the specified time, it would be judged as abandoning the encampment and surrendering. Abandoning the encampment and surrendering would only result in the guild's downgrade. If the encampment crystal was shattered after the surrender, the encampment would disappear and the resources in the encampment storage would be looted. The encampment wasn't something that could be defended easily. Although the people of Chuanjin didn't need to use the encampment, Li Shui and the other 3 girls had subclasses and had to stay in the encampment every day. More importantly, Ming Jian Daoshue's materials, Li Shui's potions, and even Mu Zixin's items that couldn't be stored in the system storage were all in the encampment storage. If the encampment was broken through, all of these would be taken by Wind and Cloud Guild. Not long ago, Chuanjin had used this to trick Gokura Kajodo. They didn't expect retribution to come so quickly. It had only been a short time, and someone had already used it on them. F***CK, we've been lured away. No, we have to return. The people of Chuanjin hurriedly stood up and prepared to leave. At this moment, Ming Jian Daoxua and Bai Ming Yuyu sent another message. There's so many people at the teleportation point. The people of Chuanjin panicked when they heard Ming Jian Daoxua and Bai Ming Yoyu's words. Mingdu panicked. What do we do? If Wuji isn't here, Blood Alliance won't be able to help us. When a guild stood in a guild residence, regardless of whether it was a friendly guild or another guild, they could all participate in the battle. However, there was one condition. The guild leader had to personally invite the guild leader to the guild assembly hall. Otherwise, even friendly guilds could only watch from the sidelines. Wuji thought about it and said, replying to Yu Huicheng, the teleportation point is completely blocked. Do we have a walk back? Chuanjin only had 10 people. Even if they were second-rate experts, they might not be able to win against a few hundred people head-on. Moreover, Wind and Cloud Guild had so many experts. Chapter 414. Genius 1, second remember if you want to go. Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. In the grocery store of Xiaobing's studio, Yu Huicheng, Li Xiaobing sat at the counter and asked her subordinate, how's the progress? Waning Moon Ice, who was in charge of Sector 7, said with respect, Chuanjin's people are trapped in Thorn City. Wind and Cloud have started a garrison battle against Chuanjin. Everything is going well. Love Go Small, say Netku Dawn Moon Ice was completely convinced by her boss. She knew how hard it was to deal with Chuanjin's sect. Not only were they strong, they were also full of schemes. Even Blood Alliance had to give them face. Who would have thought that Li Xiaobing would be able to get them into such a state with just a few moves? First, he sent someone to lure Chuanjin's men to Jingji City. Then, he made his move on them. Now that Chuanjin was in Yu Huicheng, all he had left were a few women who were not much stronger than newbies. It should be known that these women were the real trouble for Xiaobing's studio, and the others were just some obstacles. At this time, if Li Shui and the others dared to come out and fight, they would definitely be wiped out. If Li Shui was wiped out, any high-level potions would also disappear, which was exactly what Xiaobing Studio wanted. If Li Shui and the others did not accept the challenge, all of Chuanjin's supplies would belong to Xiaobing Studio. However, the materials that Chuanjin had hoarded were more than what Xiaobing's studio invested, not to mention the goods from the grocery store. No matter what, this wasn't a loss, and Chuanjin was in a dilemma. Dawn Moon Ice almost laughed out loud when she thought about this. Li Xiaobing looked at the battle report of her subordinates and said with a smile, hee, a group of guys who have never seen the world dare to play sniper games with me. Do you really think that just anyone can do such a thing? Li Xiaobing was indeed an experienced businessman. She quickly saw the shortcomings of Wuji, the mastermind of Chuanjin's gang. Wuji was highly educated, smart, and black-bellied. However, Wuji was just an otaku. He had never experienced the sinister side of human nature. No matter what he did, he would not overdo it, revealing an academic style, which was fundamentally different from Li Xiaobing's ruthless style. After 2 confrontations, Li Xiaobing could tell that although Wuji's methods were brilliant, he was still a newbie. He was good at smashing bricks in the game, but compared to real businessmen, he was still far from it. Boss is still the wiser one. Dawn Moon Ice praised sincerely. Li Xiaobing smiled and asked, how was the woman called Yu Xian now? We've already followed the plan and brought them to our base in the name of looking at the goods. Li Xiaobing said happily, good job. Now that this is over, I'll give everyone a bonus. I'll take you to Bali at the end of the month. Being good at painting pie in the sky was also a necessary skill for a boss. Thank you, boss, but there's something I don't understand. Why do we kidnap the woman called Yu Xian? Dawn Moon Ice asked in confusion. In fact, the main target of Xiaobing's studio this time was Li Shui. As long as Li Shui was whitewashed, it didn't matter to the others. Hee hee, Li Xiaobing chuckled, and her eyes suddenly became deep. She's our last bargaining chip. Thorn City, the teleportation point, is blocked. How do we go back? Seeing that there were less than 10 minutes to prepare, the people of Chuanjin panicked. Wu Ji said calmly, "Give them a taste of their own medicine." The others were stunned and asked in confusion, "What do you mean? Are you trying to lure the tiger away from the mountain?" Mario, who was rolling, asked. "That's right," Wu Ji said. Mingdu said, "Don't talk nonsense. Do you think they'll fall for it?" The people guarding the teleportation point must have been given a strict order. They most likely wouldn't leave their posts to chase after Chuanjin's people. Wu Ji said, "Whether they fall for it or not depends on who it is. Do you think it's easier to guard 7 resurrection points or 4 teleportation points?" "Nonsense. Of course it's the resurrection points," Mingdu said naturally. There were many people coming and going at the teleportation points. Moreover, they were located in 4 directions of the main city. Although there were 7 resurrection points, they were all on the same street, which was very easy to guard. "So we can go and deliver our heads," Wu Ji said with a smile. "What's the point?" Wu Ji said, "The point is that I can go back to the base. As long as we're not all dead, they won't leave." Bao San touched his chin. Wu Ji smiled and looked at Mario without saying anything. Mario, who was rolling, said, "I'm also a cleric. Maybe I can help." "This isn't a good idea," the Chuanjin people said in embarrassment. Asking people to risk their lives the first time they met? They wouldn't be able to do that to their friends anyway. Mario, who was rolling, said, "I won't die in vain. I want the agent rights for Thorn City's potions." Wu Ji had intentionally or unintentionally revealed to Mario about the agent rights for Thorn City's potions. As expected, Mario immediately remembered it. Wang Yu thought about it and said, "That's not a problem." Chuanjin's people didn't want to get rich. A dozen people couldn't swallow such a big piece of cake. If they wanted the potions to sell well, they had to expand the market. The agent rights were just a small favor. "Thank you, Great God Iron Bull." Mario, who was rolling on the ground, smiled. The teleportation point closest to Mario's shop was the one in the northern part of the city. According to Ming Jian and Shui Daoxue, 200 people were strolling in the western part of the city. It would take them at least 2 minutes. 2 minutes was more than enough for Wu Ji and the others. Soon, Chuanjin's people appeared in the northern part of the city. As expected, the teleportation point in the northern part of the city was filled with people. A row of shield warriors raised their shields and surrounded the teleportation point so tightly that not even a fly could fly in. "Hey, aren't you guys trying to catch your grandfather?" The 10 people from Chuanjin lined up in a row. Mingdu waved his staff and shouted. As expected of a vocal music graduate, Mingdu's high pitch was amazing and full of confidence. Most of these people had never seen Chuanjin's people before. However, they knew all the classes of Chuanjin's people like the back of their hands. They were stunned when they saw the 10 people in front of them. "Boss Shifu, Chuanjin's people are at the teleportation point in the northern part of the city. Come quickly." "Are all 10 of them here?" "They're here. We're here. We're here. You guys hold them back for now." "Who's in charge of the teleportation point?" "Nonsense. It'll be easier to defend if we get them to the resurrection point. That priest is their leader. Kill him first." "Got it." After the players from Wind and Cloud at the northern teleportation point received Shifu's order to attack, the ranged classes immediately started attacking Wu Ji. Yinlao Air raised his giant shield and blocked the magic arrows. Mingdu and Yang Na also started fighting back. Wind and Cloud had the advantage in numbers. Chuanjin's side did not have many ranged classes. Naturally, their firepower was inferior. They could only retreat as they fought. During this period, Wind and Cloud focused all their firepower on Wu Ji. Yinlao Air could not defend against them. Wu Ji was quickly sent back to the resurrection point. Once Wu Ji was dead, the pressure on Wind and Cloud was lifted. They subconsciously pushed the front line forward a few steps, and a gap appeared in the teleportation point. At that moment, The air near the teleportation point rippled slightly. A white-robed priest suddenly appeared. His body flashed with red light as he pounced toward the resurrection point behind the shield warriors. Chapter 415. Genius in 1 Second. Remember Love Go. The internet provides you with exciting novels to read. The cleric was none other than Wuji. In Rebirth, classes were mostly determined by their appearance. The Wind and Cloud Guild players only knew that they had killed a cleric. They did not know that the cleric who had been killed was actually Mario. Wuji had been hiding beside the teleportation point from the start. When the Wind and Cloud Guild players made a mistake, he immediately pounced over. Someone wants to enter the teleportation point. The archer's eyesight had always been good. They were able to discover Wuji at the first instant. Don't hesitate. Kill him. The shield warriors at the front raised their shields and charged forward. They did not have time to turn around and defend, so they could only let the others kill Wuji. Unexpectedly, when all the arrows landed on Wuji's body, they were completely ineffective. Wuji used his hands and feet to crawl into the teleportation point. He then rolled on the ground until he reached the teleportation NPC. With a flash of light, Wuji disappeared into the teleportation array. The package has been delivered. Hurry up! Mingdu shouted and teleported Yinlao Air into the room. To place one's pride, and Bao San followed closely behind. Ming Jian Shui and North Sea Yu went into stealth. Wang Yu threw Mingdu and Yang Na into the room and ran in another direction. Chun Xiang turned into a cloud of black mist and floated into the revival point, disappearing as well. Don't chase. Don't chase. Just as the others were about to chase after Wang Yu, someone suddenly shouted, "They're trying to lure us away." When everyone heard the shout, they immediately stopped and returned to the teleportation point. "Come and chase me. If you catch me, I'll let you." He. Seeing that no one was chasing him, Wang Yu ran back and flirted with the Wind and Cloud Guild players. The Wind and Cloud Guild players said firmly, "We are not that stupid to lure us away." Wang Yu was shocked. My plan was seen through." "Nonsense. Who can't tell that it's child's play?" There was less than a minute left to prepare. Li Shui and the others were anxious when 2 white lights flashed, and Wuji and Chun Xiang appeared in the encampment. Seeing Wuji and Chun Xiang teleport over, Li Shui felt a lot more at ease. "You're finally here." And Wuji nodded and said, "Brother Chun, you go and block the door. I will call people." Li Shui asked, "Should we go and help?" In the face of the guild's survival, one more person meant one more strength, even if these girls weren't even level 20 yet. Wuji said, "Go back to the city and wait. The rest of you, go help Brother Chan." Why don't you let me go?" When Li Shui heard Wuji's words, she felt that she was being ostracized, and her mood worsened. Wuji said, "You are our foundation. You have to go to the safest place. If you really can't do it, just go offline, okay? You can't die." At this point, with Wuji's intelligence, there was no way he could not see the enemy's scheme. Li Shui was the most important card in Xuanzhen's hand. She was more important than the resources in the warehouse. If Li Shui was around, even if the guild was breached, they could still make a comeback. If Li Shui was wiped out, she would lose all her value. All right, Li Shui was a very sensible girl. She knew that the only thing she could do was not to cause trouble. Hearing Wuji's explanation, Li Shui bit her lips and teleported back to Yu Huicheng. Molly followed Chun Xiang to the encampment entrance. At this time, the entrance was filled with Wind and Cloud Guild members. Ma Li and the other 2 girls had never seen such a scene before. The last bit of confidence they had was instantly gone. "Brother Chun, where's third brother Bao?" Molly asked Chun Xiang. Chun Xiang commanded the evil demons to block the city gate as he replied, "They'll be here soon." At the same time, Shifu also teleported to the teleportation point. Seeing that only Wang Yu was left, he said in surprise, "Have the others been killed? Everyone, head to Central Street. They've escaped." The person in charge of the teleportation point in the north of the city, Sword Emperor, was sweating profusely. Shifu laughed. "Escaped? Where to? Our people have already surrounded them." All the entrances in this area are blocked. Are the people from other teleportation points here? Sword Emperor asked. Shifu nodded. That's right. As soon as Shifu received the news, he ordered all the members of Wind and Cloud Guild to surround the city from all directions. At this time, all the entrances in the north of the city, including Central Street, were blocked. F***CK, we've been tricked. Sword Emperor immediately came to a realization. It was true that Wang Yu was luring the tiger away from the mountain. However, Wang Yu was misleading them. He was not luring their people away, but the people from other places. Thinking of this, Sword Emperor shouted, "Go back, they're on the roofs." The roof. Shifu's pupils shrank when he heard that. A chill ran down his spine, and he felt a chill run down his spine. He was used to blocking people on the ground. He had forgotten that these people did not walk the normal path. Quick, 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 everyone retreat. Shifu hurriedly gave the order to retreat. However, the roads in Thorn City were complicated. It was not as fast as Chuanjin's movement in the sky. At this time, the people on the roofs had already run to the nearest teleportation point and returned to Yuhuicheng. Don't bother, they've already gone back. Wang Yu, who was watching from the side, said with a smile. Sword Emperor was enraged when he saw Wang Yu. If Wang Yu did not affect his judgment, he would not have been so careless. F***CK, it's all because of this guy, kill him. No one was happy when they found out that they had been tricked, especially Sword Emperor and Shifu. Both of them were leaders of the guild. It was too late to make amends, so they could only vent their anger on Wang Yu. After receiving the order, the players of Wind and Cloud Guild threw their spells and arrows at Wang Yu. Bam! The afterimage exploded. Wang Yu's real body had already jumped onto the roofs. After a few leaps, he landed on the city wall directly above the teleportation point. Goodbye. Wang Yu waved his hand and jumped down from the city wall. With a flash of white light, he disappeared. This F***CK, seeing their target jump into the teleportation point under everyone's gaze, everyone was dumbstruck. For a moment, the entire place was silent. After all, it was normal for people to react like this when they first saw martial art. This was especially true for Wang Yu, who had used this martial art to its limit. The city wall of Thorn City was almost 20 meters tall. After Wang Yu jumped onto the roof, he ran up the wall. The visual effect was definitely 100 times better than the special effects seen on television. Everyone had heard of parkour before, but Wang Yu's current skills were way better than the top parkour players. Are we really playing the same game? After a long time, Manjusaka, who had been observing from afar, finally regained her senses and asked Mario, who was beside her. Wang Yu's skills reminded Manjusaka of a standalone game from many years ago called Killing the Original. Chapter 416. Seeing more and more enemies gather outside the encampment, Ma Li and the other two felt their hearts sink. They had finally found a stable place to stay. Was it going to be destroyed so quickly? Third brother, will we fail? Ma Li asked Bao San. Bao San comforted them. Victory and defeat are common, don't be afraid. But our encampment, it's okay. As long as we don't surrender, at most our encampment will be destroyed. The warehouse won't be looted. Mingdu giggled. The encampment didn't matter to Chuanjin and the others. If it wasn't for the resources in the warehouse, they would still be drinking in the tavern. When Ma Li and the other two heard this, their hearts sank even more. Not abandoning the encampment meant fighting to the death. With a dozen of them against so many people, the outcome was obvious. Were they prepared to fight to the death? Molly looked at the usually frivolous fellows of the Quanjin sect. Although their expressions were relaxed, they were determined to die. Her heart surged with emotions. Sisters, no matter what, we can't retreat, Molly said firmly. Okay. The other two girls nodded their heads stubbornly. Now, the two of you can go move those things out. Okay, the two girls answered, then turned around and walked towards the warehouse. At that moment, a system notification appeared. Preparation time is over. Wind and Cloud Guild is attacking Chuanjin encampment. Attacking party, 500 people. Not in the battlefield. 34 defenders. 15 men. Not in the battlefield. 3-time, 60 minutes target. Guild crystal after 60 minutes. Wind and Cloud Guild didn't break through the crystal and successfully defended. Why aren't Blood Alliance's people here yet? Chun Xiang asked Wuji. Wuji said, they are reinforcements. They will need to wait another 10 minutes before they can join the battle. The first 10 minutes of the guild encampment battle would be between two guilds. Reinforcements from other guilds could only join the battle after the first 10 minutes. Otherwise, Wind and Cloud wouldn't have only sent 500 players despite their numbers. At this time, Wang Yu was still in Thorn City, so he could only be considered to have yet to enter the battlefield. Considering the suddenness of the Residence battle, the system was very humane. As long as players from the host guild were not present, they would be considered to have yet to enter the battlefield. Players who had yet to enter the battlefield could join the battle at any time. However, even if Wang Yu was there, it would not be easy for the 13 of them to withstand the attacks of 500 people within 10 minutes. Storming a fortress was not like the past, where they could run away if they couldn't win, wait for the enemy to catch them off guard, and then harass them again and again until they collapsed. Now, Xuanzhen's team had to face the enemy's 500 opponents head-on. These 500 players weren't brainless NPCs. These 500 players were equipped with all classes and had excellent equipment. They also knew how to adapt to the situation and coordinate with their classes. If not for the Residence's main entrance providing cover, these 13 players would have been annihilated in a single wave of attacks. Although players on both sides could resurrect, resurrection required time. Once one side was annihilated, the battle would end prematurely. A team of 13 versus 500. Surviving within 10 minutes was an unimaginable feat for any player. The members of Wind and Cloud Guild had gathered outside Xuanzhen's residence a long time ago. The moment the system announced the start of the battle, the members of Wind and Cloud Guild attacked the main entrance of Xuanzhen's residence. The moment the two sides clashed, Wind and Cloud Guild immediately realized how difficult this small guild's residence was. When Wuji had chosen the location of their residence, they had cheated in order to better defend against monster attacks. The main entrance of Xuanzhen's residence was behind the walls of the canyon. The walls on both sides became the best cover. The width of the walls was only 4 meters, and only 4 players could pass through it side by side. This greatly reduced the difficulty of defending the entrance. Soaring Spring's 6 demons lined up in a row and blocked the entrance with Yinlao Air. Yinlao Air had Wuji's red light to protect him. With his shield up, he was not afraid of long-range attacks. The 6 demons had thick hides and flesh. With Baosan's whirlwind slash and triple slash, the members of Wind and Cloud Guild couldn't pass through the entrance at all. After all, even the players couldn't break the system's rules and punch through the walls. If it was flat terrain, they could push through in one wave with their numbers advantage. Wind and Cloud Guild couldn't make use of their advantage in numbers. The commander of Wind and Cloud Guild, Lai Huo Warlord, looked at the mountain with a headache. He turned to a wizard beside him and said, "Great change. This residence is hard to fix." The wizard was called Sudden Change. He and Lai Huo Warlord were Li Xiaobing's direct subordinates. Not only were they strong, but they were also resourceful. They were the true leaders of Wind and Cloud Guild. "Don't call me Great Change." Sudden Change rolled his eyes at Lai Huo Warlord. "Then let's call it Small Change." "Damn it." Sudden Change gritted his teeth and said, "There are only 2 warriors blocking the way. The 2 sides are empty. We can push through from the 2 sides." "Not bad, just as I thought." Lai Huo Warlord mumbled and commanded the players in the front row, Shield Warriors, push through from the sides. The Shield Warriors in the front row received Lai Huo Warlord's order. They lined up in 4 and charged at the demons on both sides of Yinlao Air and Baosan. Bang! Before the 4 Shield Warriors could reach the entrance, there was a muffled sound. A dark barrier rose from the ground at the entrance and froze the Shield Warriors on the spot. Then a green light spread out in a circle. The Wind and Cloud Guild players in the front row were covered in green light. Immediately after, Flames rose from the ground at the entrance of the gorge. The flames contained lightning, and the 4 shield bearers were instantly reduced to a bloody pulp. At this stage of the game, shield warriors had around 5,000 to 6,000 HP. Losing so much HP in a single round was enough to scare the hell out of them. Just as the 4 shield warriors were about to turn around and retreat, 4 crossbow bolts were fired from the garrison's arrow tower, sending them back to the resurrection point. Seeing this, the Wind and Cloud Guild players hurriedly took a step back. AoE skills were intermediate skills that wizards could only learn at level 30. For example, the Ice Mage's Blizzard and the Thunder Mage's Chain Lightning. However, although these 2 skills dealt AoE damage, their single target damage was not high. On the other hand, the wizards could reduce the tanks to nothing. Their damage was terrifying. If even the tanks were like that, the others would still die if they charged head-on. They were all employees who received salaries. If they charged forward without the command of their commander, who would be responsible if they got wiped? They were all smart people. Naturally, they would not stick their necks out. Damn, their AoE wizards can insta-kill the tanks. Seeing the 4 shield warriors get insta-killed, Sudden Change's face turned green. This is not going to be easy. Fire Warlord frowned. What should we do? Sudden Change glanced at the 3 people on the arrow tower and said, "The arrow tower is a blind spot. We can let the assassins sneak in and use charge. We can destroy the arrow tower at the same time." Fire Warlord said shamelessly, "That's right. I think so too." Sudden Change, 12 points. Yang Na, who was in the arrow tower, proudly displayed her kill points. Chun Xiang and Ming Du said gloomily, "Damn, Sister Qingxue, your attacks are really sharp." "Of course. Are you not convinced?" Yang Na asked. The 2 said shamelessly, "Of course. Of course." Everyone was speechless. If it was someone else who had stolen the kill, these 2 would have spat the shit out of their teammates. Now they were convinced. How shameless. Wuji said in the channel, "Stop fooling around. Their assassins are coming. Little chick, go pave the way. Dao Xue and Old Fish, watch carefully." Got it. Dao Xue and Baiming Yuyu, who were standing behind the stone walls at the entrance, made an okay gesture. To place one's pride ran from the back to the front. He took out some lime powder, bent down, and secretly sprinkled it on the ground. Lime powder could break stealth. Only Yu Huiqing's players knew. Outsiders like Wind and Cloud Guild didn't know. If Morning Moon Ice was here, she might have warned Fire Warlord, but she was still waiting outside. "What is that fellow doing bending over?" Feng Yun suddenly asked in bewilderment. "I don't know. Kill him." Fire Warlord didn't know what a place one's pride was doing, but a Grandmaster of Combat dared to do something like this within range. It was a provocation. If he didn't kill him, it would be a waste of his position. Who would have thought that hidden pride would be so nimble? She dodged left and right, continuously dodging arrows and spells. Soon, the canyon entrance was covered in a layer of lime powder. To place one's pride had just retreated to the back when he saw footprints on the white ground. The Chuanjin player smiled. "They're here." At this time, Yin Lao Air and 6 demons blocked the entrance. They only left a gap behind the mountain wall. The gap was behind a mountain wall where the Wind and Cloud Guild players couldn't see. It was very clever. There was 1 person at each exit. It was Dao Xue and Baiming Yuyu. Assassins had always been a mainstream class, and there were many assassins in Wind and Cloud Guild. These assassins were afraid that they would be instantly killed by the mages on the arrow towers while they were in stealth, so they didn't dare to force their way in. They could only move through the gap that Yin the Second Elder had left behind. However, the assassin at the front had just reached the end of the gap when he mysteriously appeared at the resurrection point, waiting to be revived. Since Dao Xue and Baiming Yoyu's positioning was very clever, the assassins at the back couldn't see them at all. They continued forward. By the time the first batch of assassins who died shouted in the channel that there was an ambush, the lime powder that a place one's pride had scattered on the ground had already been stepped on. At the same time, Mingdu threw another wave of AoE spells at the entrance. In an instant, the fire thunder glowed with white light. Mingdu's points skyrocketed to over 100. He had instantly killed over 30 assassins. Those assassins didn't even know how they had been discovered until they died. F***CK. Seeing that over 30 of his guild brothers had been killed, Fire Warlord could no longer remain calm. "Get the big guy," Fire Warlord said angrily. "Aren't we saving the big guy for last?" Wind and Cloud Guild asked hesitantly. "You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.